What is up, everybody? Welcome to a late night after show here on Logical, Plausible, Probable. Everybody who's coming on over from the one and only Standing for Truth channel for the interesting and, as always, filled with dodges from the atheist supporters, but interesting conversation on Neanderthals, whether or not they are examples of evolution or devolution. Very interesting topic. This was actually going to be a double after show originally. There was supposed to be a Matt Dillahunty versus Stuart. I cannot pronounce his last name. But then there was tech issues, so that canceled. So then, because SFT is just so fantastic, this became the primary and the only subject of the after show tonight. And we're trying to keep SFT's ego in check, but he literally had a superhero cartoon created of himself. And so it's getting difficult to keep him in his place, but it's okay, man. Appreciate you guys all coming on over to enjoy this, folks. If you want to join in and share your thoughts about the debate, link is in the description. I've also got it pinned in chat. Just make sure, at least for initially, we're going to discuss the debate. Who you thought won, lost, best comebacks, best zingers, who dodged the most, who was the most annoying side chat person? I'm going with Dr. Dan. That's just me.
Doctor.
As a sidebar, before I turn this over to open discussion,
Leo was there too.
I saw Leo. Yeah, but Dan is just more annoying. He's even more annoying than Leo. But hang on, one thing before I turn conversation over to open mic. Everybody, I just want to issue a proclamation. Last night, Dr. Dan Stern Cardinal was insisting that I debate him. I then proceeded to offer to either A, pay to fly him to Nashville to have an in-person debate with me, or B, I would come to Rutgers and have an in-person debate with him there. We can stream it on MDD. We can stream it on whatever channel he wants on YouTube. I could care less. But if I would debate him, I want to do it face to face. He has Gutsit Gibbon, David Neff, and other individuals in the evolutionary camp somehow have interpreted my offer to come and debate him live in person all the way to the extreme of being willing to pay to bring him to me is somehow, in their Fantasyland worldview, somehow that is me being afraid to debate the man. I literally do not know how anybody who is rational, let alone an individual who is currently an associate professor at a high-level institution such as Rutgers, who teaches in front of people, I'm very surprised that he would view that as me being afraid of him. I also insisted that we stream it to one of his classes. So I'm not really sure how you can interpret that as fear. Or perhaps he is just a prime example of the atheist Fantasyland projection complex, where he is literally projecting his own fear onto his opponent. I am done with my my diatribe there, folks. Let's turn it over to the members who have joined the stream. And I think, as I know that Nephilim Free was having to contain himself throughout the entire debate, I think we'll go to Nephilim Free first. And he's kind of temporarily postponed his own after show, so we got to get him involved. So, Neff, the floor is yours, my friend. What did you think about tonight's debate? And look forward to hearing from you.
You're so afraid. Logical LPP, you're so afraid that you'll pay for the guy to come see you, and that's an example of terrible fear. You scared creationist, you. So, okay, here's my take on the debate. A lot of dodging on the behalf of David Neff, Standing for Truth going into detail about genetics, then David Neff claiming that in a debate, Neanderthals evolution or devolution, David Neff claims genetic entropy is not part of the subject matter. What does devolution mean? I mean, what is he talking about? Hello, McFly. McFly. Hello, my name is Fly.
I
Okay, so
I was losing my mind on that one. That was so
Yeah.
funny.
and then of course David appealed to evolution authority a few times. Got to do that. That's what they do so much. I think it was a slam dunk. Standing for Truth clobbered him, especially on genetic entropy, which was part of the debate. Hello, McFly. Evolution or devolution of Neanderthal, right? It was a total decimation. He decimated David.
Well, one of the interesting things I took both from David and from the side chat conversation, specifically what was being led by Dr. Dan Stern Cardinal, associate professor at Rutgers University, who teaches general biology 115 and 116. That apparently I'm so afraid I know exactly what classes he teaches. It's amazing. He didn't seem to comprehend the premise that the point you just made, Neff, of like devolution versus evolution was what was in question. And anything that Standing said that did not fit the standard talking points from the evolutionary biology camp somehow had no relevance in his worldview. Like in his mind, it had no relevance if it countermanded anything that he took as fact. And it's like, dude, in what universe do you live in where the only thing that is real is what you think? Because that's what it seems like comes out of these people. But Standing, what do you? I know you're probably have to go mainline some coffee here in a minute. So, what are your thoughts? What do you think, and what did you take away from it tonight?
Well, I mean, it just further confirmed because even in the side chat, Team Dodgeball was there, and it just further confirmed that they've got no answers for one, genetic entropy, okay, and two, what they believe is a slam dunk argument, apparently because Neanderthals are genetically different than us as modern Homo sapiens. They won't accept an answer, right? But then when you start questioning them on their position, their model, suddenly something like genetic entropy, which is directly related to the degeneration of our early biblical patriarchs. Mm-hmm. That's why I kept harping on patriarchal drive. I mean, it's a fascinating concept and it answers all of these questions. But here's the thing. They have to, that's not part of the debate. That's not part of the debate. I mean, I had to call him out. If I was too aggressive, I apologize. But I had to say, David, quit tap dancing. Answer the question. Mm-hmm. And here's the thing. He was getting coached by Dan in the chat. He was literally word for word at times using Dan's arguments, especially on the H1N1 extinction. I don't know. It was a fun debate.
Well, one of the interesting things about that I really took away from that tap dance around the virus question is, and what really gets me is that, Dr. Dan, the pseudoscience man, continues to make these points when he, as a virologist, he knows what I'm about to say is true. Viruses get weaker over time, even though when they're mutating. Like, we all know this. Like, the mortality rates of viruses decline over time, which obviously the point which you were making, standing in relation to H1N1. And it's like, yes, there may be a mutation that for a brief period causes a spike, but then it still continues in a downward trend. Like this is known. The data on this has been in for a long time.
It's been published in a mainstream journal that the only rebuttals you can get to Dr. Sanford and Dr. Carter's paper on the H1N1 human version of the virus, going from a red hot pandemic literally to a whimper to an extinction event in 90 years due to the fact that it got weaker.
Okay. Oh, sidebar, bro. Hey, so Gutsick Gibbon is back, and she's still doubling down on this dumbass.
The captain of Team Dodgeball is here.
John, come on. He offered to debate you over MDD and stream it to his class, but for whatever reason, you have your heart set on in person during a pandemic. Just kind of odd since you love debate. So, Erica, again, I apparently this is so far beyond your head, but I don't know how it's beyond the PhD's head that we can socially distance. I'm fine with all that. Like, hey, let's do what they did in the presidential debate here in Nashville, and we'll put up a freaking plexiglass partition. I do not care. I want to do it in person, face to face, man to man, eye to eye, and have a conversation with the guy who has talked so much trash and talked such a big game and insulted my intelligence on multiple occasions. I want to face the man face to face and see how big his mouth is when we're going eyeball to eyeball. And we'll see which one of us has the higher IQ and which one can annihilate the other. And I'm fine with that.
Remember,
but I want to do it face to face, mano a mano. I'm sorry, as a woman, you don't understand that premise, but I do. And theoretically, he does, since he talks about his, he's a father and all this kind of thing. Okay, so apparently he's a man. So let's go and do it. Let's have a face-to-face conversation and let's live stream it. And he can spew his talking points and I will spew my talking points, and we'll see which one of us has a more comprehensive argument regarding the existence of life. It's pretty simple. It's pretty straightforward. And the vast majority of debates in the history of humanity have been done face-to-face. So yeah. And anyway, the point I was making the other night on David Neff's channel got me hidden because there are a bunch of little wusses over there. If you go and look at the data, which apparently evolutionists don't have the mental capacity to do, is he and I are both under 40. Therefore, we are not at risk of dying of COVID. So this whole we're having a pandemic defense mechanism is a joke. Unless you're a coward. Anyway, I yield. Let's see. Standing, go ahead. I apologize for my tangent there. Go ahead, man.
Well, I was just thinking of Neff's debate with Dan, where he was muting Neff. And see, with Dan, you definitely need a really strict format, strict structure. And what was I saying before? Yeah, here's the thing. Debating David is actually fun because he's willing to, I got to give him, he's got guts to debate all these topics that people like Gutsy Gibbon just say, wow, every time I hear genetic entropy, I'm just going to wave it away, right? Because here's the thing, they all rely on Dan. And that's why. And I even tuned in to David's after show for a couple of minutes. And one of the evolutionists was in there, Dessel. He's an evolutionist, he's an atheist. And he was even admitting to David that, listen, David, you being coached by Dan in the live chat with Dan feeding him arguments, that's not how you debate. That's not a good way of debating. So when it comes to the genetics, when it comes to like the top level arguments on our side, they really got nothing, and it just, I don't know, it shows how strong our model is, and all the glory to God. So that's all I got to say right now.
Amen.
Amen.
Yep.
How do you fight scientific data? You have to throw around assumptions.
You got to dodge.
They get scared.
Yeah.
And remember, real quick, I'll say this one thing. I've now had this same Neanderthal debate with Dr. Dan, Just a Walking Fish, who's friends with Dan and Erica, and now David. And every time in my opening, I go through a number of slides showing how in every way, shape, and form Neanderthals are human, just based on a number of reasons, them burying their dead, they were religious, whatever, they purposeful navigation. And they always say, well, that's not a problem with our model. And every time I point out the fact that, listen, you did not predict this. Guys, Neff, you would know this. Hugh Ross and Kent Hovind had a debate. I mean, it's got to be 20 years now on the John Ankerberg show. Right. And Hugh Ross, being an old Earth creationist, he was saying, oh, no, Neanderthal, and they still hold to this position. They're doubling down, the old Earth creationists. And Hugh Ross, they say, no, Neanderthals are not human. They're an animal. There's no evidence that they're humans. And Ken Hovind in that debate said, no, they're humans, this, that. But we didn't have as much data back then, right? So the young Earth creationists have always been saying, no, Neanderthals are fully human. And guess what? All of this data keeps coming out suggesting that they had the mind of somebody made in the image of God, and they never predicted it, but that's why they just want to wave that away too.
Right. They buried their dead with flowers. They made flutes. They were religious. That's right.
But we're just using our imagination. We're pointing all the facts, but you creationists, we cannot trust anything you say. I mean, they just see us as pseudoscience, though we have better model than they do, and they just call us pseudoscience. I mean, it makes so much more sense than their model, but they just don't want to accept it.
Well, and look at Erica. She's just repeating talking points. She says genetic entropy requires the change of the fitness definition standing. Me and David didn't even get into the definition of fitness the entire time. Erica doesn't understand what an effectively neutral mutation is, because every time her response
She's
is,
not a
"Oh,
genesis.
if it's bad enough, selection will just see it." For one, that's why I ended with that new paper that just came out a week ago from Carter, Sanford, and Price, where they actually mentioned Dan Cardinal by name. And they point out the fact that these evolutionists don't understand what a nearly neutral mutation is. It's like Jackson Wheat with his debate with Nephilim Free. Nephilim Free points out correctly that no, selection can't see the majority of these mutations. Therefore, the question is, what type of mechanism? And I must ask David it 1,000 times. I ask all Team Dodgeball it 1,000 times. Neff asks it all the time. What type of mechanism can remove all these mutations that are unselectable?
They can't answer. They never answer.
No, selection can't see them.
That's right.
They got nothing.
Yeah. The debate was pretty good. My thought, once again, Safety, the science denier, completely got destroyed. He was being teachable science there. Safety completely crashed down. I'm kidding. That was a great debate. We already knew from the beginning of the debate that David was gonna dodge, but at least he's
got the given.
Yeah, at least he's taking his ball and he's actually doing the debate. So
listen, I want to point out something, and Neff, you'll get a good laugh at this. Gutsit Gibbon, okay? She will say that because a blind cavefish lost its eye, therefore it can now survive better in the darkness of those caves, right? Because before it had the eyes, it was getting puncture wounds and it was dying, right? So it lost its eyes.
Yeah.
But to Erica, because of the evolutionary paradigm, she thinks that's an increase in fitness. No. It lost its eyes. Now, in a narrow sense, it increased its ability to survive in that environment. It could have more kids. But overall, in an absolute sense, absolute fitness, it has experienced reduction. That's why I gave that example about the car. And if Gutsit Gibbon can reiterate, go ahead. If I wanted, just temporarily, and I used it on David, I said, if I wanted to increase, if I wanted to get better gas mileage, just for a short time by reducing weight. So I started throwing things off of the car, destroying parts of the car. Yeah, temporarily, because now the car weighs less, it's getting better gas mileage. So in a narrow sense, it's increased in quote unquote fitness, but overall it's destructive. Overall, it's degrading, and the car's being destroyed. Doesn't explain how the car was built itself. They got no arguments. They got nothing.
That's right. And then try to plug a creature like that into the evolutionary tree. A blind fish, huh? What is how does that figure into the evolutionary tree? A whole clade of blind creatures. This is going to be an advantage. A creature with the anatomy of a fish that's blind. Boy, that's really great.
Wait, am I hearing right? Does they actually give that fish losing their eyes is somehow proof of evolution?
They say that's an increase in fitness.
Yeah.
They think as long as it's reproducing and has a greater ability to reproduce. Here's the thing. There's so many humans now who have so many mutations, but if it's not a mutation that's horrible enough, guess what? They can still have kids, and those kids will then have more mutations. So they have no comprehension about the difference between absolute fitness and just reproductive fitness.
Dude,
I think it's the same thing.
I'm shocked. It's like saying I have a car and I lose certain piece, my car go faster, but still I lose information.
Will, you're 15 and you got it. Gutsit Gibbon's getting her PhD or her master's in primatology, and she can't even get it. But here's the thing, they have to pretend not to get it. And that's why when you get them into live debate on this topic of genetic entropy, it's an automatic win. They got nothing, because to them, sickle cell anemia, which is due to broken gene, broken protein, a broken cell, ultimately, it's a reduction in genetic functionality. To them, that's an increase in fitness. But they don't understand that overall it's a loss.
That's supposed to be called science. That's supposed to be called science. I mean,
it's nonsense.
I mean, this is ridiculous.
They're stuck with having to give responses like that to believe that, because they have to believe that any kind of change constitutes evolution. See, they've forced themselves into a corner where they have to admit that because of their mantra, change equals evolution. And we hear this mantra all the time, right? Because of that mantra, they have to claim that a creature losing its eyes, a cavefish losing its eyes, constitutes evolutionary change, and evolution can't be bad, right?
Yeah, and I think didn't David mention that too, that there's no such thing as devolution?
Yeah.
But
And then I
doesn't they
gave him
use the vestigial, organ? Wouldn't that? I mean, it just shows that they don't really know what they're talking about. They're just always contradicting each other.
the best thing to do is quote their own side. And I brought up Kimura, I brought up Michael Lynch, Kondrashov. These guys are evolutionary population geneticists who admit that there is a mutation accumulation problem. That's why they come up with rescue mechanisms like synergistic epistasis, mutation count mechanism. Why? And I ask this to the evolutionists every time. Why are they coming up with mechanisms to solve a problem that apparently doesn't exist?
Yeah, but
That doesn't make any sense.
but doesn't like genetic entropy just literally destroy evolution? So from what I'm hearing, what you're saying by genetic entropy is every generation are having other mutations, so those mutations cannot be destroyed. They're still there. Even if you reduce the population, they're still there. So everyone are getting worse. They're not getting
Right.
better,
Over time.
right?
That's right.
I mean, that's not really difficult to understand. And I mean,
No, it's not.
I think that's really like that go well or what we're observing. There's more like case of autism, all that type of stuff. Like, I mean, everything is going worse.
Everything's getting worse. And here's the thing.
Why wouldn't that do that for the gene? I mean, it doesn't make sense.
And that's what Erica doesn't understand in the chat, that because selection acts on the level of the whole organism, okay, it's either the whole organism that's selected or not at all. Selection can't go in. Mother Nature can't go in and say, oh,
Exactly.
here's one nucleotide.
That's right.
It's either every single nucleotide, all 6 billion, or none at all. And that's why I pointed out the fact. I like going to the bigger picture. I'll ask Erica in the chat right now, or she can come in and answer the question because she has no arguments. And here's the thing. We put out a video where she said, I'm not a geneticist 25 times.
Yeah.
Apparently, genetic entropy is not a thing. Take all 8 billion people. I like to not obfuscate the issues. I want to make it understandable to everybody. There's 8 billion people on the planet. Get rid of the worst. Fine. We're all multiply mutant. Everybody in here, we essentially have the same amount of mutations, okay? Get rid of 50% of the worst. Guess what? For one, that's not realistic, but just for the evolution, give it to them. Let's see if we're gonna let's see if it's gonna help the case. No, because then you're still left with 4 billion people who are more mutant than the generation before it. So either way, all that can occur is what? The genetic degeneration can only be slowed down, but it can't be stopped, and that's why they have no arguments.
Yeah, like I mean, let's say like we take let's say 95% of the population, right, currently has, let's give them 100 mutation, and 5% of them has, let's say 60 mutation. Well, they're still there. They're not getting away. Everyone is still getting some mutation. So how could he possibly get million of years? I mean, surely it doesn't make sense, right?
Right. You can't. It puts shelf lives on genomes. And here's the thing. Erica is so uneducated on this topic that she's in the chat just providing no arguments. And according to Kimura, according to world famous population geneticists, they point out that a mutation can be deleterious and effectively neutral at the same time. But people like Erica, Dr. Dan, David Neff, they believe that there are mutations that are just 100% neutral, as in there's no effects at all. No, population geneticists point out the fact that there are many mutations that are so subtle where they're only slightly deleterious. I call that they're called effectively neutral, where guess what? It's not affecting reproductive fitness. There's a lot of humans that have bad mutations, but guess what? They can still have babies. And those babies pass on the mutations. And that's where they don't get it. They have to explain how all of these effectively neutral mutations that are just only slightly bad can be removed. But they have no answer because there is no answer. And they need to say, no, these mutations are just strictly neutral. They got no effect at all, which is ridiculous and anti-science.
All right, hang on, guys, real quick. So Jungle and Godzilla Freak haven't been able to say anything since I came into the stream. Jungle, you were in here first, man. What would you like to bring to the table, my friend?
I wasn't able to follow the conversation very much, but I think I did learn that the Neanderthal genome is probably the more original human genome, closer to Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Is that correct?
Exactly. They would have started off different. They would have started off more diverse. And their question, why are Neanderthals so much different than humans? They were closer to the creation event. They started off different. It's such a simple answer, but they can't get it, right?
Right. And so this is not a complicated thing. This is just basic logic. If you have information, let's just say you have information, you have a book or whatever kind of information you have. Now they think it's being selected out. We know it's not all being selected out. So you are still having errors you're copying errors. You're having, so if you're having errors to the information, with time, it can only destroy the information. It is not going to write instruction that's not there. Now, this is not complicated, and I wish these ignorant PhDs would understand this. So that's my pet peeve for the day.
Well, here's the thing. It's clearly not as easy to understand for the evolutionists who are willingly ignorant because they don't want to understand.
That's very true. Very true. All right, Godzilla Freak, anything you want to bring to the conversation?
Well, I just want to say that there's this really big point that they repeat over and over again, where our argument for Neanderthals going under patriarchal drive, where we would have basically high mutation from inbreeding, right? And then they'll say, oh, but the Neanderthals have less mutations, so that's contradictory. But I feel like what they're failing to realize is that, first of all, there's sort of different areas where the mutations are happening. And also you can get a higher mutation effect, like morphologically, where you see more mutations due to the fact that they're actually stacking on top and showing as recessive traits, even if the rate where the mutations accumulate is actually slower.
Actually, that's a really good point. Yeah, that is a really good point. Yeah, they don't seem to. Oh, go ahead, John.
No, you finish your point, and then I just realized that I'd totally forgotten about Danny. I'm so sorry. So SFT, finish your point, and then Danny, you can have the floor next.
I was going to find my comment with Jensen on this one because I was pointing out that the hypermutation anyways would, because here's the thing. They want to ask us why the mitochondrial DNA, right? Why is it so much more diverse than modern humans? And then we'll say, well, hypermutation, they accumulated more mutations. And then they'll say, but the Neanderthals were highly inbred, right? They had a lot of levels of homozygosity, signs of inbreeding. That's contradictory. No, because the hypermutation can have the biggest effect on the mitochondrial DNA because it's the smaller DNA compartment. It's only 16,000 letters. The nuclear DNA is in the billions. So any effect from the hypermutation is going to have a far less effect on the Neanderthals, especially given how inbred they are, as compared to the mitochondrial DNA. So where they think there's a contradiction, there is no contradiction. And I asked Jensen this, and he clarified. Oh, here it is. So he said hypermutation. I'm just going to read it. Hypermutation would have a big effect on uniparentally inherited DNA. Okay. And less of effect on biparentally inherited DNA, which is less diverse, which is what we see. Okay. He literally said this. And they say this is a contradiction because Jensen doesn't agree. It's like they're saying Jensen disagrees with Jensen because Jensen agreed. So it's funny, man. They're desperate.
Yeah, I also just wanted to add, like, with all the morphological differences between modern humans and Neanderthals, what you have to realize is that the mutations aren't always showing on the phenotypic level, where you don't always actually see the mutations in the bones per se. But in an inbreeding population, even if there's not that many mutations, if they're all showing, then that's going to visually have a bigger impact, even if there's not even that many, right? As long as they're all showing.
All right, before we let Danny jump in here, I have some massive entertainment. So I decided to go check out the Neff channel. And okay, here we go. This is side chat. So David P. Neff. At Gutsy Gibbon, roast me. How badly did I do? Her response: wish we could have prepped more, but could have been worse. Okay, and then Luca, who's I think now over here. Luca, on a debate perspective, he stomped you. You are too polite. So, standing, as I've been telling you for quite some time, in debate, being the nice guy does not pay. But don't respond to that yet. Danny, what's up, man? Welcome to the after show. How are you doing? Did you catch the debate, or are you just jumping in to overwhelm us with your philosophical excellence?
No, I was listening to some of it, but I really don't understand a lot of the theories, like evolutionary theories. So I was just listening.
Gotcha. I appreciate that. And folks, I have to admit that Danny is one of my favorite atheists. He actually concedes where things are taken to the extreme by some of the more dogmatic folks, and then also concedes things he doesn't understand rather than just spewing talking points, which I greatly appreciate that, Danny.
Yeah, no problem, man.
All right, let's circle back around. Neff has been being quiet for quite some time. I'm afraid he may give in to his urge to go have his own after show. So, Neff, as you've been listening to the discussion, what's been sticking out to you? Anything else you want to bring up?
Just a bunch of good points. I would point out that the morphological differences, evolutionists see any change as evolution. And the morphological differences between humans and chimpanzees and modern humans and Neanderthal, and in the mind of an evolutionist, you hold up a skeleton of a Neanderthal with their barrel-shaped-ish rib cage and the robust bone structure, and then modern human next to them, and the evolutionists in their mind, they say, see, evolution. See, there's difference, because change or difference equals evolution in their mind. Here's the thing, though. Their anatomy is completely human. From all we can tell, they're just completely human. I mean, forget the genetics, which demonstrates they're genetically defunct human beings. But they're completely anatomically human. Evolutionists like to pretend and sometimes seem to forget that for evolution to be true, there has to be structural design changes accruing continuously, or you never have anything but the same kind of animal, right? It has to change in its structural design, or there can be no such thing as evolution. There wouldn't be any tree of life. But we don't see that. We don't see it in the fossil record, and we don't see it between Neanderthal and modern humans. There's maybe differences in the shape of the skeleton, the robustness of this bone, or how wide the rib cage is here or there. It's the same skeleton. It has different morphology, not different anatomy. Evolution requires anatomical change, which evolutionists can never point to. I just wanted to bring that up.
Yeah, Neff, there are changes between the Neanderthal and us. They were smarter and stronger. Okay.
Yep.
Wait, is it the disagreement that that Neanderthals aren't human? What was it? What was the disagreement?
No, not that they're not human, but that they're so far removed from modern humans as to be an example of a somewhat transitional form to humans. A slightly transitional form is what they claim.
Well, the term human seems to be an ambiguous term, right? Like, I mean,
well, they say they are human, but they're just such early human that they're different enough that they provide evidence.
Yeah, I don't even know what that means.
Basically, they mean like they're in the same genus Homo, but not the same species.
But isn't it like taxonomy just kind of like a practical endeavor? Like, I don't know. Like, I've never really understood why taxonomy would be like categorized as like science.
Well, basically, they have the idea of sister species, where there's like enough of a removal from us and Neanderthals to where there's like just a big enough divergence.
Yeah, but there's not really a fact of the matter, right? Like, the point is that in taxonomy, when they put like all these labels on all these organisms, including our own species. It's just a practical endeavor. I think for humans, it's not like we discover these like categories, right? I mean,
Yeah,
we could easily
yeah.
have, let's say, hypothetically, there was another group of agents, another group of scientists that formed their own kind of taxonomy. It's not like their taxonomy would be wrong. It just, at worst, it might be like impractical for our aims, but if it worked, quote unquote, working for them, I just don't really see genuine disagreement.
Well,
Right, I feel like
one of the
it
things that
matters
really
more for
frustrates
the
me.
creationist, actually, because for the creationist, you actually do have these original kinds where it doesn't go further than that.
Well, I wouldn't even say that. I mean, didn't God give the command to Adam to name the animals?
Right. But for the evolutionists, it all goes back to a common universal source
But
of
you're talking about a
ancestry.
creationist, right? A creationist.
Right.
I mean, if Adam named them differently than the way he did, let's say, it's not like he would be wrong.
Right, no, but the idea with the creationist view is that the different kinds never connect in ancestry.
Oh, I
Right,
don't. Yeah,
they
what-
never end up interbreeding at any point.
well, is that something that they use to support the idea that like Neanderthals are so far removed, quote unquote? I still don't know what that even means.
Okay, so here's two things. Number one, what I get so much entertainment from in what is going on is Chris having Chris Keith, are you having some problems with typing today?
Is my mic working?
Your mic's working, but your name is
Good. I got a new mic. No, it evolved. It evolved. It's Diet Coke.
Okay, I got you. I got
mutated.
you. Okay. Man, I'm sitting there trying to I was trying to reverse. Like, what the heck has he changed his name to? Like, what is happening here?
It's Diet Coke, but it kind of.
Yeah, I see. I can see Diet Coke now.
It frame shifted.
Yeah, I see
Yeah,
that.
it's Diet Coke with some just some substitutions and shufflings.
No, but in relation to the
new information.
Neanderthals and all these other ones, supposed transition forms, what really gets me is phenotypic plasticity is an accepted premise. Yet, any type of plasticity somehow is proof of a transitional form. And I've made this argument many times. You look at the skeleton of a freaking dog. You have a Chihuahua skeleton and you have a Great Dane skeleton. And you don't know if all you did was dug up the fossilized remains. Are you going to be able to know beyond doubt that the Chihuahua and the Great Dane are both? Are you going to be like, oh, well, the Great Dane must have come from the Chihuahua? Like, are you going to be able to make that assertion if you have no idea about anything other than like, oh, they got 4 legs and some claws and some and fangs? Like the head shapes are dramatically different. The body structure is dramatically different. I mean, you can apply this logic to so many different things. Then you look at humans, like, okay, let's say you dug up the bones of a group that was the offspring of Shaquille O'Neal 1,000 years from now. And all of them were, 6'8" and above. Like, but then you find another one of people that are all 5 foot and under. You have no personal knowledge or observation of the events. All you have is the bones to look at. Are you going to claim that they're a different type? I mean, you're talking about a 2 feet difference, 1.5 to 2 foot difference in skeletal size. I mean, these things just like completely tossed out the window. And it's like, oh no, the smaller one must have evolved into the bigger one, or vice versa. Like, it just amazes me how these things are just like tossed out the window in relation to explaining our existence, when you can actually think about this from a real world application perspective, and you would have differences that could potentially, I could argue, if I'm operating from the evolutionary worldview, I could argue with great amounts of passion that no, they must be a different species because they're a foot taller. I mean, anyway, is that the argument I'm making? Does that make sense?
5 to 7 feet is a 3 foot difference.
I mean, there's just so many different, so many contexts like that. I know SFT, you've talked about the Is it the elephants? Like the little mini elephants they found on some island somewhere?
Pygmy elephants.
Yeah, the pygmy elephants. I mean, it's like, since we know this beyond doubt, we have observed outcomes of this, and then we're gonna argue that this proves evolution.
There was an article on the news website just the other day about pygmy shrew. You should see the size of the thing. It's fully a shrew, but the thing is so small you can rest one on one of your fingers. They're smaller than a mouse. They're a fraction the size of a mouse, but it's a fully grown shrew. The thing is tiny. It's the size of a baby mouse. It's unbelievable. Is that evolution though? That's just difference in size.
I know better can't ever comprehend this stuff. The argument does not make sense to them, and as usual, right.
And then with regards to our definition of fitness, they miss it completely. No, we're not changing the evolutionary definition of fitness. The evolutionary definition of fitness still exists. What we're doing is we're sort of making another definition of fitness, which means something else. But it's not a replacing, it's just an adding of another idea, which is very important.
Except evolution doesn't exist, that's the problem.
Right, no, but evolutionary fitness is just like survival and reproduction, right? You could grant that as a type of fitness and then just make a new kind of fitness for what we have for genetic entropy.
And variation.
Genetic entropy applies to the second kind of fitness, then universal common ancestry would still be impossible.
Be like variation and adaptation is not any kind of evolution.
Right. No, all I'm saying though is in regards to the definition of fitness, where you can have a word and have multiple definitions like that. That just happens. It's not like you have one definition for a word.
Oh, guys, one of the points you were making earlier about the kinds too, that this premise always gets me in the relation to the evolution argument. And I'm like, okay, so let's think about this just for 1 second. Your entire premise is that because there are similar gene sequences, therefore they must have preceded because they have similar ones. It's like, okay, there is no other and this is what always gets me about them arguing like nested hierarchy and such being in their favor. When you look at everything that we do in creating systems and data, data structure, coding, everything that we do, we use this exact logic. And you can have multiple, for anybody who has ever built any kind of web app, any mobile app, anything of that nature, you're going to use a framework, at least in the modern era. You use different frameworks. You use different scripts. You do slight modifications to those scripts for a standard function. You connect to an API that has a pre-existing function code base, and then you make some little slight modifications to it. Like, this is exactly what we see in biology. We see the exact premise.
Yeah, because everything has to grow.
And somehow, from the, in my opinion, stunningly ignorant of information theory, communication theory, and modern tech perspective, evolutionary biologists and their little advocates and the YouTube activists run around claiming that this works in their favor of evolution. It does not. It actually lends, in my opinion, lives greater and greater credence to the premise of kinds. It's like nobody in their right mind would say, oh, there's two websites that are built on WordPress. Because they both used WordPress, that means that one came from the other. Nobody would ever make that argument with a straight face.
That's a good point, John.
You can apply that exact logic to any other kind of freaking app that has ever been built in the last decade. You can apply that logic.
And I know, but then you know what they'd say? They'd say, oh, we know that those apps were created by people, so obviously they were created.
Well, true. It is a better standard response, but I'm just like, I used the plugin. What is your point? I use the plugin. I don't understand why you're like I'm saying this in context of like eyeball. Okay, I used X plugin. Then I had this CSS file that changed the fields, the the text box size and the drop shadow and the color and the button size. Like, this is what we are talking about, people. And then you're talking about like, oh, how much can information or how much light can the eye process? Oh, cool. I changed the amount of file size attachments that it can take. Oh, and for the frequency range, oh, I changed that it can take both JPEGs, MPEGs, MP4s, and .avi files, but it's going to exclude, X, Y, and Z file type. Like, this is not some kind of high level premise in. I mean, it's direct comparison of what we're seeing in all these different like slight functional variations, and then you look at the code base variations, and the evolutionists claim, oh, this is proof of evolution rather than design and a slight modification, which is literally what every developer does in the modern era. And
Well,
fool if you
LPP,
don't follow that model.
they have to claim that everything biological is an example of evolution. So no matter how much how strong the evidence is that it's designed, they have to say, well, that's evidence of evolution, because everything was made by evolution according to them, right? So yeah, that's why they do that, huh?
Well, it's like the web page has to grow. Life forms, they all have to grow too, but the result is always different depending on what the kind is,
Wait, wouldn't
Right.
you say that everything is evidence for God? Like all observations are evidence for God?
I would say that.
I'm just replying to what Nephilim said. I mean,
yes, I would, of course.
Okay, so no matter what observation that an evolutionist might bring to the table, it's just going to be evidence for God.
That's because everything came from God.
Right, no, it could be evidence for God without being evidence for like creation, though, right? It could be evidence for some form of like theistic evolution.
Well, there's
You have to
philosophical
understand-
evidence for God. There's scientific evidence for God, philosophical evidence, historical evidence, scriptural evidence.
Right,
There's
like
different
when I
lines
say
of evidence.
Observations, though, that's why I wanted to highlight observations. I mean, no empirical observation is going to be able to falsify like God, right?
Right, no,
Right.
like what you have to get with like the contingency argument
Because
is that the
nothing
fact
can
that
make
anything exists at all to be observed
right.
is evidence for God.
Nothing can make itself. Nothing can cause itself.
Godzilla, you were being talked over. Could you repeat what you said?
Right, so basically with the contingency argument, which is what most people refer to when you have any observation being evidence for gods, that even something being possible to be observed would be evidence for God, because that something would have to exist. And for the contingency argument, the ground of anything contingent, so like basically everything in the observable world, would have to depend on some necessary existence, which we would then define as God. And you can't.
Why wouldn't you think they're contingent brute facts? Why wouldn't you think those exist?
Well, they would be like necessary brute facts, right?
Well, there's the necessity of a proposition, but then there could be the bruteness of a proposition. Those are not conceptually dependent on each other.
Right, but even a contingent brute fact would still be contingent.
Right, but the point is that that's not a contradiction. So just because you have some kind of contingent fact, there's a question of whether it depends on some other fact, could be necessary, or whether it's brute itself.
I would point out that the very process of observation wouldn't exist if it weren't for God. It can't be accounted for with philosophical materialism. You require the supernatural for there to be such a thing as the process of observation. The idea that chemistry, no matter how complexly it's arranged, produces an observer is an absurdity.
Okay,
Yeah,
basically, my main point here, why it works.
If you're an atheist, you should
is that the existence of God is a metaphysical claim, whereas evolution is a very specific scientific claim. And you can have all observations be evidence for a metaphysical claim, but you can't have all observations be evidence for a scientific claim.
So you could falsify evolution, but you can't falsify creationism, is basically what you're saying?
No. For theism, at least, you would have to falsify it philosophically, whereas for evolution, you would falsify it scientifically.
Well,
so
in the literature, falsification criteria. First of all, falsificationism least in the 20th century, was kind of brought forth by Karl Popper. And that criteria only applied to like empirical theories.
Right? Exactly. That's the point.
Well, the thing is that God is not an empirical notion.
Yeah.
So you can't falsify God.
Well, it's not that
hang on.
That's not empirical can't be falsified. It's that anything that's not empirical doesn't need to be falsifiable. There's a big difference there.
Well, it's just not going to be a criteria that applies.
Right, it's not a criteria, but it could still be possible.
Well, I don't. What's possible that you think that? Can you repeat that?
Oh, it could still be possible to falsify a philosophical claim. It's just not necessary for
I think that just be an
claim to be
falsification.
Right, it's not a criteria.
You want to distinguish falsification and then prove to be false. Those are two different, concepts, two different things, right?
If you're just saying like, does it have to be falsifiable to be adequate? Then yeah, of course not. That's only for empirical.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just drawing on the meaning from Popper's idea of falsificationism, which is not synonymous to prove to be false. Those are very, you could in principle, God, if all we know about God is he's some kind of metaphysical postulate, in principle there could be a proof against it, right? I mean, you could also have a proof to show its necessity, maybe, but the point is that we're not talking about falsification in that case.
Yeah,
I would say it's a necessity.
Scientifically.
Because you have to go back to God. Either that, you have to go back to infinite possibilities, infinite universes for infinite possibilities, which is absurd because you have to account for where all the power is coming from for all these universes.
Again, I just want to go back to a defense of the idea of absolute fitness, as opposed to evolutionary reproductive fitness. Because, they'll ask you, like, oh, why is it important to have this idea of absolute fitness? Well, the way I think of it is that take the reproductive fitness and let's say, like, take vehicles as an analogy. The reproductive fitness would be like how well a car would sell, right? And you take it into these different places around the world with different environments, and based on different factors, they might sell differently. Whereas absolute fitness would be like, if you take them into a warehouse and you just run tests, like how fast can it go? What's the gas mileage? How many people can carry? And you just run these empirical tests, you can see how functional the car is. And the point is that if the cars keep decreasing in functionality over time, and that its speed keeps going down, its passenger load keeps going down, right? Its gas mileage keeps getting worse, then, well, the car is never going to improve. No matter if it goes into different environments where it happens to be better, the overall trend would still go down. So this absolute fitness is very important, even if it's not evolutionary fitness.
I've never heard of absolute fitness, but it seems like it uses a lot of like normative notions, like use the term improve, function. Even fast is, I think, a normative notion.
Right, but you can look at gene function, right? Especially if you run knockout tests, you can look at, okay, how much of the genome is functional.
Yeah, do you mean function in the normative sense? Like the teleological sense?
Function in the sense that, like, it does something for the organism that it actually uses.
Well, the idea when X is done for Y, that implies a reason. Otherwise, I would want to know what you meant. Right?
Well,
like if I do this for you, I have a reason to do this.
Let me think. I don't think I quite get what you mean there.
Well, the notion of for in most contexts implies a reason to act, like some kind of intention or
meaning.
Right.
Right. So living things.
If I do X, if I brush my teeth for the prevention of cavities, right? That implies some kind of like norm.
Purpose.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
purpose, exactly. Purpose. So the question of function and purpose, right? The question I had, right, are you treating it like that? Are you treating it like a normative notion where there's a goal or purpose in mind, literally in mind?
Well,
Intent.
I think I'm just taking it as like a statistic notion almost. But
Well, that's strange. So you're saying that the function, let's say, of a gene corresponds to a particular statistic, the statistical truth about that gene?
yeah, like what that thing is able to do with that gene.
Well, there now you've muddied the waters with ability, because that's a modal notion, right? Possibility would say if I'm able to do X, I can do X. It's possible that I do X, right? But I don't think you can tie function to statistical.
Well,
I mean, like,
don't forget you have the instructions that causes the function.
well, the idea is that, like, let's just take the gene,
Good point,
the gene that's malfunctioned, like as you would say, in sickle cell patients. Okay, that gene, right? The way that it's mutated has some kind of statistical, set of truths about what I don't think we're going to say that it's functional with respect to those statistical truths, right? Where you would want to say something like, it's malfunctioning because it's not doing what it was designed to do, or something like that.
I want to say that with the broken gene, when you knock it out, there isn't any change, right?
Well, broken is a normative notion.
Right, but no, I just clarify. Like when you take out a broken gene, it doesn't affect the organism, which means that the gene wasn't working, right?
Well, I don't.
Well, hang on. Another caveat. Hang on. Another position has to be taken on that too. So, what we're also discovering with knockout experiments is, especially now with more in vivo observation technologies that have been developed, one of the things they're discovering is many of these genes that they thought had no function and they thought were broken actually do have function, but only in very specific instances that they were not being able to recreate in the petri dish. So what that also was actually leading to is the recognition that different genes that they thought just had no function were broken, do have function, but they're now also recognizing, oh crap, it turns out that there's these genes that we thought were broken actually weren't broken, but now through mutations that we're now observing are actually the result, or the root cause of different diseases. We just didn't know what the cause was until now, because we weren't able to recognize and observe the actual expression of that function. And this is putting a whole new conundrum in the overall supposed proofs of evolution, when all the stuff that's, oh, this is proof, this is evidence for evolutionary theory. Oh, wait, crap. No, it's not. And they're having to come up with all sorts of very creative explanations for these things and do a bunch of mental gymnastics to try and reverse what they claimed was proof is now not proof, actually goes against, but then come up with some new way of how it works in their favor again. And unfortunately, the vast majority of the folks running around on YouTube defending evolution refuse. Well, A, they're either completely unaware of what I'm talking about, or B, refuse to concede the relevance. And to be honest, it's getting rather obnoxious. I'm not talking about you, Danny, because I know this isn't your focus, but the folks running around claiming this stuff just blow my mind. It's like, go read a paper from last several years on this topic, and they're really admitting it in publications. Like, oh man, we're learning all this new stuff. It turns out there actually is major function, for example, that depends on cell type. So whole portions of the genome that we were told had no function, now we find out, oh, it actually has major function, but only in this specific gene type.
And that was predicted, LPP, by creationists as far back as the 1970s, 80s. This is the work of David Menton and others. They predicted the genome is functional. This is against the junk DNA paradigm that evolutionists held back genetic science with for 30-something years, because they wouldn't study the majority of DNA, because they thought the majority of it, everything with protein codes, was useless garbage. Whoa,
Yeah.
lo and behold.
Do you
Yeah,
know who Jerry Fodor is?
they remind me of the Beaky Buzzard. If anybody knows what a Beaky Buzzard is.
Do y'all know who Jerry Fodor is?
I think I've heard his name.
He's a pretty prominent, or he was. He died in 2017, I think. But he was a psychiatrist, I think, and very, very, very respected philosopher. But he wrote on evolution, and he was an atheist, by the way, a strict atheist. But I want to read this paragraph in his book, and he writes a book that's critical of natural selection, and in which I do agree with him here in his book. But y'all would probably really enjoy this paragraph. It's just one paragraph. Here, quote: "You might reasonably wonder whether writing a critique on the classical Darwinist program is worth the effort at this late date. Good friends in quote-unquote wet biology tell us that none of them is that kind of Darwinist anymore. No one is in structural biology is a bona fide adaptationalist. We're pleased to hear these realignments, but the doubt that they are typical of biology at large, consider, for example, ongoing research of mathematical models of optimal natural selection, they certainly are not typical of informed opinions in fields that either of us worked in, including the philosophy of mind, natural language, semantics, the theory of syntax, judgment and decision-making, pragmatics, psycholinguistics, and all of these. Neo-Darwinism is taken as axiomatic. It literally goes unquestioned. A view that looks to contradict it, either directly or by implication, is ipso facto rejected, however plausible it may otherwise seem. Entire departments, journals, and research centers now work on this principle. In consequence, social Darwinism thrives, as does epistemological Darwinism, psychological Darwinism, evolutionary ethics, and even, heaven help us, evolutionary aesthetics. If you seek their monuments, look in the science section of your daily paper. We have both spent effort and ink rebutting some of the most egregious of these neo-Darwinist spin-offs, but we think that what is needed is to cut the tree at its roots, to show that Darwin's theory of natural selection is fatally flawed. This is an atheist that said that, and
I've
not
never
any
heard the author's
atheist.
name before, but I think I've heard the quote.
Yeah, he's not any atheist.
It's ironic you bring that up. So one of the very first videos I did when I started this channel, one of the points that I made was that I didn't name all of the topics or the different disciplines that you meant that were in that quote, but I mentioned 4 or 5 of them, right? And that Darwin made the point that Darwinism is the root of the development of those disciplines. And I cannot tell you the number of people who lost their shit on that premise. And it was a proof that I was ignorant, didn't know what I was talking about. Darwinism had nothing to do with the development of evolutionary psychology, all those different things. And I'm like, so I don't know what world you live in. This is a well-recognized premise. And I'm just like, I don't know. What I find interesting about that kind of stuff is, it's like, how do you even respond?
Yeah, they believe evolution is the foundation for everything. Everything.
It's so insane to me. I mean, it's just insane. I mean, and his book was very poorly received because it flies in the face of their dogma, as you would say. They're almost in the worst way. I'm using the word in the most negative way possible. The religious, commitments. That's what I would say.
Well, and I think that one of the points that has to be recognized, and I've made this in many of my videos, I've made this argument many times, and the most hardcore of the at least the YouTube atheist demographic, or the lack of belief, lack atheists, try to make this counterpoint that I'm like, you don't have to come to a conclusion in a god of a specific religion. But if evolution is proven to be false, and that the only way that it's plausible for life to exist is through the actions of a prior existing intelligent agent, then the only logical conclusion is that a higher power of some kind must exist. Like there is no other rational conclusion if the entire premise of evolution and abiogenesis is proven to be false, or the conclusion is reached that it's not a remotely rational explanation for existence. If
Obviously, there's two options.
Atheism is not a remotely rational worldview. Again, you don't have to come and say that Christianity is true, that Islam is true, Judaism. It doesn't matter. Like insert in religion. You don't have to go to any of those links in terms of where you pivot to. But if what I just said is true and evolution and abiogenesis is false, then
that's exactly right. Because there's really two options, John. There's creation or evolution. There is nothing in between. Nothing.
Or aliens.
That's where we're going to disagree, but.
Or aliens.
What could exist in between creation and evolution?
That's what I was going to ask. If it's not God, what is it? Aliens? Is it aliens?
It's not a true dichotomy.
It's not. Explain why. Explain.
Well, a true dichotomy is in the form of A and not A. So, like, it's either evolution or not evolution.
Explain why, if there is only, it's not true that there are only two options, creation or evolution, to explain what exists. Explain.
Well, it depends on how you look. If you understand what a true dichotomy is, then you understand that.
I don't care about terms. I just want you to be able to explain why it's not correct to say there's only two options, creation or evolution. Why? What third option is there?
Yes, caveat. Creation or abiogenesis is the dichotomy. That's the true dichotomy.
Yeah, I think so.
And in that context, it's if abiogenesis and therefore, abiogenesis being true is a fundamental requirement for evolution to be extrapolated.
Exactly, it's the same problem. It's the same problem of information that's not there. Where did the information come from?
It's the same problem as creation versus evolution.
No, it's only two options. It's either that life came from non-life or life was intentional. That's the true dichotomy.
No. Where did the information come from?
Evolution. Evolution is the only plausible explanation for why things could exist if natural causes, if there are no supernatural causes. Natural causes, that is the laws of physics, matter in motion. It must be the explanation for all things, all phenomena, all right, all material things. So there is one. And now those things either came into being because of teleology, or they came into being because of nature is capable of doing the most fantastical things. So it's either nature is self-explanatory, or nature is not self-explanatory. If nature is not self-explanatory, then there is a cause outside of nature. Immediately we go to the supernatural. Okay, so there's only two options: creation or evolution. There is no other. There is no third option. And that this is why evolutionists are stuck with believing all things are a product of natural evolutionary process. Evolution must be the cause for an atheist, must be the cause for the explanation of the existence of the universe and all biological life. All phenomenon are explained with evolution. It's the explanation for everything.
Yeah, I think a lot of atheists would accept that, but I would discourage that everything needs an explanation, including, certain contingent entities.
Okay, no, I would just say that biblical creation and Darwinian evolution are obviously not a true dichotomy, but general just creation and evolution is a dichotomy in the sense that with creation you have a starting point of high functionality, high complexity, whatever, and it either stays the same or goes down. Whereas in evolution, you start with low complexity, single-celled organisms, for example.
Yeah, but that's just a symptom of either creation or evolution. That's only the symptom of the cause. See, so but there's only two potential causes. Now, nature is self-explanatory, or nature has a cause. If nature has a cause, we go immediately to the supernatural. Thus, we have creation. See, so there's only two options. Regardless, you can't slice it any third way. either creation or
that's if you're
evolution
positing an
explains all
explanation, right?
things.
You're saying if there is an explanation, it's either natural or non-natural, right?
Yeah.
Well, the atheist is stuck with believing naturalism is true.
Well, they might not think there's an explanation.
Well, then that's just not
hang on,
doesn't sit
hang on,
comfortably
Danny.
with
Just because they don't
atheism. That's all.
are you suggesting that are you taking the position that the explanation is not findable, or that there is not one?
Well, it just depends on. Well, obviously, there's
because in theory there would always be an explanation. Whether or not you can determine what it is the case in point. But are you saying there is no explanation?
Yeah,
Well,
either you
depends
have
on-
blinders on or you don't.
Right, no,
It depends on what
supernatural could just mean like not natural. So it is what you say as a true dichotomy. It's either natural, A, or not natural, not A.
And then Danny, to build on that point, in the instance where you might not be able to derive empirical, directly observable evidence, what is the extremely common and accepted process for reaching a conclusion about something?
Well, it just depends. Like I said, obviously, there's an explanation for why I have particular genes, right?
Well, no. Hang on. I'm talking about in any other context. If it's not something you can observe in real time, to reach a conclusion, what do you do? Do you use induction and deduction?
Well,
the evidence you use, we're talking about a high level right now. If you don't have the ability to observe something in real time, do you use induction and deduction to reach a conclusion?
if I'm understanding you, I think it's deductive by deductive.
No, I'm not saying you have to pick one. I'm saying you can use induction and deduction. My point is that you're using either induction or deduction or a combination of the two to reach your end abduction, correct?
Well, I don't think if you're saying that if we can't in principle observe it empirically, I think necessarily you can only posit the existence of the thing or even an explanation, a metaphysical explanation via deduction.
I'm not talking about it in terms.
Well, I'm having a hard time.
I'm talking about it in general. I'm talking about from a very high level perspective. You're going to go down one of those paths to try and reach your end conclusion, right? Whether it's on who killed so and so or how does the world exist? Like I'm not picking a specific topic. I'm talking about it from a general perspective, right? Like that's exactly what you would do, right? Now.
Oh, okay. So, like generally speaking,
right now,
in induction.
Right now, in the context of this overall conversation of like what evidence do we have, what's the rational conclusion, et cetera, when you look at all of the different pieces of evidence from an induction and a deduction perspective, from my perspective, I know many others, the rational conclusion that you reach is that an intelligent agent must be required for these things to occur. That just purely undirected natural process is not a remotely plausible explanation. Then on the flip side, you have, and this is where I find it so ironic, is in the abiogenesis and all the way even into evolutionary theory, you have to say what we know in any other context would not be the natural outcome. We are arguing the literal antithesis of what we observe to be the natural outcome is what happened in order for life to exist. Like that is the dichotomy of what's actually being argued. Like, okay, in a lab, we know that an intelligent agent can cause something to occur that would not be the natural outcome in terms of like forcing molecules to do things that they wouldn't do naturally, right? On the flip side, we have the argument that somehow without the intelligent agent forcing molecules to do what they would not normally do, somehow they did and are doing things that the intelligent agent is not able to do. And Kit is like, I don't know how to do this. I see what's happening. I have no idea how to do it, right? No, it's not that the intelligent agent couldn't potentially learn how to do it and how to replicate that what we're observing and that's required for life. But the point is that if the things that are required for life to exist are so far outside of the realm of what is the normal, uncontrolled outcome, how it's the rational conclusion to say no intelligent, absolutely, categorically no intelligent agent was required for this is the more plausible conclusion for for existence of life. Like, that is the argument that is made at its ultimate root by anyone who claims that natural undirected process is the more rational conclusion to how you exist than evidence for an intelligent agent, and therefore potentially a god being required for life to exist. And to me, like, the fact that somehow the atheists, I mean, this ultimate is an atheist worldview or position in the worldview, is being argued to be the more rational one, blows my mind when we're talking about it from a purely empirical perspective. Does that make sense?
Yeah, there's a lot that's been said. I guess the thing I want to, I guess my main response would be that I want to know what you mean by required, because when typically, if there's a requirement, we're talking about necessity, right? So
it's easy enough.
Yeah. What was that?
I mean,
Easy
producing
enough.
life. Yeah, producing life in the lab specifically requires intelligent agency, even if it was executed.
Well, the properties of life demonstrated purposefulness, meaning, function, interdependence. You could possibly put interdependence off to the side and say that's possible to arise. You're stretching it, I think, to believe that interdependence comes about. Only on the macro scale can you get interdependencies, large scale things. At the molecular level, interdependency really, the purely chemical, that doesn't work. But these things, function, purpose, and meaning, are properties of organic life. Those things are only products of intelligence. It's irrational, I say.
I don't think those are natural.
It's irrational, I would say, to believe that function, purpose, intentionality, and meaning can arise because of matter and motion.
That makes sense. No sense. But that seems like you contradicted yourself, right? That you're saying that there's purpose, that can be predicated of these states, right? Of
okay. So let me explain a little further. If let's say two chemicals encounter each other and there is a reaction, that's great. But is that a purpose? Well, there's no purpose to it. It's just what happens, right? It's not purposeful, right?
Right, I agree.
When something is purposeful, it screams of teleology.
Yeah, that's right. I agree with that as well.
Okay. And same as function. Same true of function. Two molecules of different types can encounter each other and have a reaction, but there's no purpose for that. That doesn't constitute a function. A function is something prescribed. It's something forethought. It requires forward-thinking mental processes. To create a function means that a need has been discovered and a way to meet that need was devised. That's what a function is. See?
Yeah, I agree.
So mental processes are necessary for the existence of functions. Okay.
No, I agree.
Okay. Biological life is meaningful, functional, and prescriptive, algorithmic, linguistic, semiotic, information, meaningful, semiotic.
Yeah, that's going to beg the question against the atheist, though, right? Because if you're defining functionality as needing a mind and then predicating functionality of biological states, you've presupposed an intent and an intelligence.
What is presupposed about the understanding that function requires mental processes?
That's just analytic, right? That's true by meaning, right?
Exactly.
But when you say that a biological entity has a function, that presupposes a mind.
Well, especially when it's directed working function.
Yeah, that's where the evidence leads.
Yeah, directed function. That's another great point, JJ. When we've got function that's directed by information linguistics and algorithms, we see obviously intelligent design.
And that's exactly what chemists are doing in the lab. They're manipulating lots of things.
But the meaning of function implies a creator or at least a mental state.
So be
Yeah,
it. That's simply
yeah,
what it is.
fine.
And
It
this
could
is
be.
why I say there's only two options:
Yeah.
creation or evolution.
Well, but
Yeah.
then
Well, I mean,
atheists.
How,
Danny,
how
we
would you
couldn't.
produce? Yeah,
It's
Danny,
layers and
how would
layers.
you how would you go about producing genetic code in the lab without intelligent agency?
I don't know. I don't know. I don't think my answering of that question turns anything there.
Well, you cannot answer this question because it's not rational to answer that.
Well, that
If
doesn't
if,
follow.
if you go answer
Well, what
saying,
are-
well,
Okay,
because
well,
the only-
what are origin of life chemists trying to do? What are they trying to achieve?
I haven't talked to. I guess how the conditions in which you can get life from non-life, is that what they're doing?
Right, but they are failing. They're not making much progress. I don't know if you're aware of that.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can grant that.
Okay.
But
Yeah,
what
so-
what is it? What does that show though?
well, that show that if them alone being professional in that field, that they know everything about life, they know a lot about life, and yet they have everything at their hand, and they cannot even do something that could do itself with
Very
random
basic.
things. I mean,
Very
it
basic.
does not
Yeah.
make sense.
What it
I mean,
verifies is that the idea is not scientific.
yeah,
I agree.
yeah. Real quick, Danny.
I think. Well, I agree to the extent that an intentional explanation is not scientific.
Yeah, well, Danny, let me ask you that real quick. Let's assume you have a computer, okay? And you have two graphic cards, like 16 gigabyte of RAM, a complex computer. Would you say which one is more rational, okay? An intelligent design. We're not talking about God here. We're just talking about an intelligent design that's has a mind, or it just happened by itself. Which one is more rational?
Which was that if I just came across a computer, I have greater reason to think that it was designed.
Whoa,
why
good.
wouldn't you
So
think
They
that
why-
a
don't
cell is
recognize
Wait,
what
wait a
biology is.
Wait a second here. So do you realize, Danny, that just a single cell
Yes.
is more complex than a freaking space shuttle, okay? You have 30 trillion, the estimate is 30 trillion or 40 trillion of those in your body. Would you say it's rational to believe it happened just by itself in 4 billion years?
Well, I might have the intuition that it's designed, right? But
Oh, okay.
being
So,
responsible, if we're being epistemically responsible, right? If someone were to challenge my intuition, right? My intuition would beg the question. And if they replied with something like, I have no background information or background knowledge about how cells were originally produced, but I do have background knowledge about how computers were originally produced. And so one serves as a reason to think that one's intelligently designed, the other not. I don't know.
Why the
do-
other
do
not?
you- well,
Oh wait,
do-
Dan. Well, how come the other one no?
yeah,
How
and
come the
background
cell you would
knowledge.
say it's
Danny,
not designed?
Because
yeah,
they don't
Danny.
have background knowledge of the origin of cells.
Yo, Danny, do you
Okay, well,
understand?
plenty have been, studying this for decades, and
Yeah.
they still can't get it to work. Even
Yeah.
we can give
What is that
scientists
supposed
all
to
the
show?
life-friendly
Yeah, and-
molecules they want.
And
But what
Danny,
I don't understand what that's supposed to show.
Danny, do you understand it's easier to get a computer
Well-
to build itself by nothing? It's easier to just it will be easier for a computer to build itself than a cell. So that doesn't really make sense because for my computer right now to build itself would be more rational. It would be more plausible that it happened, but the chances are really low. But for a cell, it's probably a billion of time even more complex than a computer. So I mean,
Yeah, I could grant
surely
that for
okay.
sake of argument.
So would you
Okay,
say
so-
would you say at least there's an intelligent design behind that? Would you at least grant that
Grant what exactly?
that there's an intelligent
That there
design?
can be an intelligent agent behind the
That there
process
could
of the
be?
first cell.
Like it's possible?
No, not could
Yeah.
be that there is.
Yeah.
Not could be
Would I
that there
grant
is.
that premise? No, I wouldn't grant that.
And why
So
not?
Why?
you do.
You just defeat.
You do
Wait a second,
realize, right?
Jungle. Wait a second. You just defeat your own argument.
Are
literally
you saying
just-
you don't get the inference
Let me-
that
let me
life
just
is in
ask
fact
Danny
designed?
Wait, okay.
Real quick, boys. We gotta just stop speaking over each other.
Yeah,
Yes.
let me ask Danny something real quick. You do realize, Danny, that you're giving all the credit to mindless matter, don't you?
For what? No, I don't really take a position.
For biology. Oh, now you're not taking a position.
No, I'm an atheist for philosophical reasons, not because of empirical reasons.
Well,
Okay,
you're
so
denying
when-
the existence
You're
of
lacking-
God as an
you're
atheist.
All
lacking-
right, I finished.
All right.
No.
Well, are you aware that abiogenesis research isn't going anywhere?
I could grant that. I don't see what turns on that.
Well, I mean,
The
it's
statement
being,
itself.
it's being
The
aided.
statement-
You're gonna have to. I don't know. Okay, I could grant
When-
that. I don't see how that should compel me to
Here's an interesting observation. Atheists some of them will admit that they get the inference of design, right? Even we all know the famous quotes by Richard Dawkins and others. They say, oh yeah, it looks designed. Life, Eugene Koonin, they've all admitted that life has the appearance of having been designed for
But
a
it's
purpose.
not really is.
So, but the thing is, when they do this, and then they turn around and say, yeah, but atheism. What they're really doing is they're refusing to acknowledge that inference should draw that is strong enough to draw a conclusion.
Well, it's not an inference.
Sure, it's an inference.
Well, I don't know what you mean by inference. If something looks designed, you haven't inferred design. That's a perceptive thing going on.
Well, then how would it form naturally then?
Okay,
No, you get an inference from design.
Okay, so
and
Danny,
you made to minimize.
So Danny, you made the concession about computers, right? And then
that I would think that if I saw a computer on a beach, I would infer, or I would infer that it's designed.
Okay,
Right?
no, basically,
okay,
you're using, like,
right? You would, correct?
Yes, I would. Yeah.
Okay, so and then Will was kind of making the point of like, hey, your cells literally are operating at a higher level of technology than computers, but in the context of the root outside of the hardware, which we can talk about in a second, but outside of the hardware side, you got the software side, right? And no computer is going to function without software, correct?
I don't know a lot about computers, but yeah,
you have to, at a minimum, you have to have machine code. Otherwise, now
it can turn on without software, right? But
you can turn on the power, but nothing's actually going to happen because there's no information for it to read. So you still have to have
information in the meaningful sense or in the non-meaningful sense.
Information is meaningful.
Information in the meaningful prescribed sense. Now.
Oh wait, I would dispute that because I think.
So are you actually going to make the argument that without formally structured syntactic information that computers are going to operate?
Well, it depends on
what the hell are they going to process.
There's a lot going on here, right? Information is a tricky word.
We're talking about encoded information specifically for.
No, it's not a tricky word.
It's got to be true.
Danny, I'm not going to let you play the typical atheist semantics game on what is information. Okay, you can go in the descriptive angle for the measurement of something. We're talking about specifically prescribed syntactic and semantic information, which everybody with half a brain who has ever taken information theory or communication theory class knows about. So we're not going to play that little dance around game.
Well, I agree. It's information. It's natural information.
No. It has prescribed. No. Okay, information.
There's no such thing as natural information.
Okay, so we're going to go on an argument. Okay, so can you see my screen?
Yeah, I can see it. Yeah.
Okay, so premise 1: all codes require arbitrary values being assigned to representative impulses, signs, or symbols. Would you agree with that?
No.
Okay, that's literally like the basic definition.
Well, if you're calling DNA,
no. Hang on. All codes that we are aware of, do they require arbitrary values being assigned to representative impulses, signs, or symbols?
Well, I don't know how. You don't want to play the semantic game, right? But I'm trying not to play it. I'm trying.
Typical atheist dog.
Okay, it's literally okay, dude. Google definition of code real quick.
Okay. Well, I mean, I have my own understanding of what a code is.
Okay, from an information theory perspective, am I literally using the definition, a premise of a definition of a code from information theory?
Well, the problem if you define it this way, then
holy shit, dude. Okay, premise 2. Let's just go through these and we'll see if you actually how much you dance around because, dude, this is such basic information theory 101. Premise 2: code values and syntax must be determined before messages can be encoded, transmitted, and decoded. Would you agree? I'm talking about anything that's human created. Okay, we're not talking about genetic code yet. Any code base that humans use is what I just said in premise 2.
Oh, then yes, I agree. I agree with the first premise and that.
Okay, awesome. Premise 3: all codes require a translation mechanism, adapter, key, or process of some kind to exist prior to translation.
Yes, that's fine.
Okay, premise 4: translation of encoded values does not transform one symbol into another. The representative symbols are interpreted to be equal.
I think I know what this means. It seems like, yeah, I think this is acceptable.
Okay. The letter A in binary is 0, 1, 0, 0, 0, 1. They're not A does not become those things; it is equal to them, and is interpreted to be that through the translation mechanism. Okay. Now, premise 5: the genetic code contains all of these factors.
No, that's where I would dispute it.
Okay, why?
Well, I don't think there are any representations or symbols or signs.
Okay, so
know what biology is.
What is okay? So you okay? So let's go back to premise 1. All codes require arbitrary values being assigned to representative impulses, signs, or symbols.
Mm-hmm.
What is a codon?
Well, it's 3 nucleotides, right, that have a covariance with a particular amino acid.
They are right now. Let's jump to premise 4. Yes, premise 4. Translation of encoded values does not transform one symbol into another. The representative symbols are interpreted to be equal. Hang on. During protein synthesis, does the codon, which is equal to an amino acid, does it transform into chemically? Does it transform into the amino acid, or is it interpreted to be equal to the amino acid in question?
Yeah, I don't think it interprets. Could you repeat your question one more time?
Okay. When a mRNA goes to a ribosome, does the codon turn into chemically? Remember, let me caveat this. Does it chemically interact with at all with the amino acid in question? And does it in any way, shape, form, or fashion chemically transform into the amino acid in question?
Yeah, the mRNA does not make contact with the amino acid.
Okay, so the codon that's in the mRNA does not interact with the amino acid in question, correct?
Right. Yes, I agree with that.
Okay, so there is absolutely no transformation of the codon chemically into the amino acid.
Yeah, that's what we mean by transformation, is that there's no interaction.
Correct.
Then that's fine.
Cool. Now, is there a translation mechanism between the codon and the amino acid to make sure they are equal?
Well, this is where I'm going to lose you, right? Translation can, in the interpretive, like language sense, because I understand the process.
Symbols being equal to each other.
Well, I don't think there's any translation in that sense.
Okay, well, you obviously need to go read some papers on this, Brady, because this is a well-defined concept that there is a literal translation. There's like hardcore papers written on this whole deal. It's one of the greatest conundrums in the entire existence of life, is that not only is this what's happening, is that there's literal translation and recognition of the symbols from a mechanical perspective that is happening in 3-dimensional space in order for life to exist.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of nuance here.
No, there's not nuance. There is literal. This is the whole point of this exercise.
Well, if you want to send me a paper, then
I'll happily do so if you actually will promise to read them, unlike the 99.99% of the atheists who make that claim when I pin them on this whole topic.
Well, I'll be honest, I can read more than like 8 pages right now.
One of the bottom lines.
Let me finish this whole point. Okay, so just real quick. All right, so let's just, for thought experiment purposes, let's assume that premise 5 is true. The genetic code contains all of these factors. Okay.
Well, then I think you
hang on. Premise 6. All of these requirements depend on foreknowledge of the intended outcome. So let's toss genetic code out for just a second. Going back to
I accept all the premises after that. If premise 5 is true, everything else follows.
Okay. So it has literally been dubbed the genetic code enigma. It's the greatest enigma of all time. That how in the heck could this code have possibly formed through undirected process? This is not from creationists. This is a recognized conundrum from origin of life researchers. Like, hey, we must figure out how it is remotely plausible that a literal code somehow formed without intelligent agency.
Yeah. $10 million prize.
Yep, 10 million. If anybody can do it, take chemicals to code, and they're all failing.
Who's offering 10?
Yeah, I think it's
10 million.
I think there's a
Barry Marshall. Barry Marshall.
Hang on. So
is it creationist? I guess.
No, Barry Marshall.
Okay, now hang on. So, in the context of this little argument here. You just made the point, Danny,
Mhm.
that if premise 5 is true,
Premise 4. Oh, yeah, premise 5. Yes.
if premise 5 is true, then 6, 7, and 8, and ultimately the conclusion are it's a correct flow, right?
Yes, it's valid.
Okay, so let's put this in context, and I'm gonna play 2 of my favorite clips of all time.
Okay,
So
John.
DNA it's an identical process of computer codes. And it's very interesting that, computer ideas about computers developed early in the 20th century, and, Claude Shannon comes along in 1948, and DNA is discovered in 1953, and when we start unraveling DNA, we find out that this incredibly sophisticated communication system has been around for 3 billion years.
And we just discovered the communication theory that explains it.
That's right. Okay, and so there needs to be no question that communication theory applies to biology. Okay, all of these concepts can be applied to DNA.
Is that debated anywhere?
Only among people who are ignorant, frankly.
Okay.
Okay. People in the know do not debate
But not in
this
this
fact.
credible scientific community. This is well understood.
There is no credible scientific argument to try to say that applying communication theory to biology is somehow inappropriate.
Yeah.
There's hundreds of scientific papers that go very deep into the subject, and so no, there's
You're not.
I think that
Okay, hang on.
Or life even possesses logic gate processes, for crying out loud.
Absolutely. Okay, so now we're going to go one step further, and so that was Perry Marshall. That video, the first clip I just played, that's from Now we're going to fast forward to the very end, May 28, 29, like that, of 2019. And this is,
I think your
I'm talking.
What'd you say?
Your audio is fine now.
I'm talking at the moment with Perry Marshall and Kevin Ham. Perry Marshall is from Chicago in the United States, and Kevin Ham is from Vancouver in Canada. And we have just taken part in the United Kingdom launch of a huge prize to be won by anybody who can produce the genetic code or a genetic code via natural process generating it itself. Perry, have I got that right, first of all?
That's right. Any code, any encoding, message decoding system that can come out of an emergent property from chemicals to code would qualify.
Yes.
And I think it's one of the most fundamental questions in all of science. And it just hasn't gotten the attention that it deserves.
That's right, it hasn't, and I think that's partly why we've been highlighting it in the meeting that we've just had here at the Royal Society in London. You can't get much more prestigious than that, can you?
No, it's
by the way.
it's
Yes.
delightful.
Yes. Now, question perhaps also to Kevin: does it really need to be 10 million? You know, I'm a scientist. To me, that's a huge sum of money.
Well, if anyone won $10 million, they know where to find it.
Where's
Yeah.
that
10 million.
laughing-
Come
Where's
on,
that
Atheist.
laughing clip? Where's that laughing clip where he goes, ah, ha, 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 ha.
I think they could toss in a Nobel Prize in with that too if they did that show.
So,
What are they? Does the guys Perry Marshall and the other guys Kevin? They know what they're speaking about, right?
Yeah, and it's also funny. It's also funny that internet atheists always claim that these chemists are, they're not really trying to produce life in the lab. Yeah, they are. It's just no one can do it.
Yeah, because only God can do it. Only God has the wisdom to do so.
now,
All right,
since,
I just wanna
now,
say
since, now, since Danny's in here by himself as the only atheist, we'll let him respond to that. So,
I mean, so the video. I mean,
well, no, I want you to respond to the fact that my entire argument that I just made, that we just went through, right?
yeah.
Per your own admission, if premise 5 is true, then 6, 7, 8, and therefore are correct, or
Yeah.
or the correct conclusion, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so the literal most prestigious academic institution on the planet is in 100% agreement that all of the fundamental requirements for a code from an information and communication theory perspective are exactly what is occurring in biological systems. So
that every that
basically
all these hallmarks are shown in these
that all the things that, like, there's actually quite a few more than all this, but all of the premises in 1, 2, 3, and 4 are present in the genetic code.
Yeah, I think that premise 1 is probably the most problematic for me.
Okay, so should I pull up the paper that's the arbitrariness of the genetic code?
Well, no, it has to do. It's a conceptual issue, right? It has to do with the meaning, right? So, let me. If you now, this is a pretty big conversation. That
You're still trying to talk.
Sorry, what?
Still trying to say something?
Is it? Can I not be heard?
After all that, I mean, you're still talking. After seeing all that, you're still talking.
Yeah, it just looked like a bit of denial on your part.
Hang on, guys. Dan, let's let Danny continue. Go ahead, man.
Yeah. So it's the idea of a symbol, right? Now let's say there is some kind of natural phenomenon, right, that scratched up a rock where it seems like it spelled out the word cat. Okay. And the key there is that it seems like it, right? If someone were to look at that rock, right, and see cat and then infer, right, from their background knowledge that someone inscribed the word cat onto that rock, okay, I wouldn't fault them, right? In fact, that's why I empathize with many of you, right? I don't really fault you because I do see the analogs between the genetic code, right, as you would say, as scientists would say, and the codes that are present in our computer systems, right? There are analogs, right? But there's a now for me though, right, is we need a reason to say that it's not like the rock in the sense that there's not this natural phenomenon that could potentially explain it, right? And I think that's where, if we're not doing justice to the whole dialectic, but I think that's the crux of the issue for me.
So are you suggesting that we're just drawing a unsubstantiated comparison?
All right, no, the problem with
I think what you're doing,
that's a weak argument.
I wouldn't really even want to say that. I think that you're
saying that we're interpreting something that we could perceive as cat scratched on the rock. You're applying that same premise to the genetic code, correct?
Yeah, to DNA, which is a weak argument.
Okay, hang on.
I understand.
In biology, I suppose it would have to be the double helix, Watson and Crick discovery of the structure of DNA, which was far more than just the discovery, the crystallographic work, discovering the structure of a big molecule. Because what that led up to was a major revolution in which much of biology became a sort of branch of information technology. The consequence of the Watson-Crick discovery, with all that it led on to, the DNA code and the sort of various genome projects that are going on now, is that genes, which from my point of view are absolutely central to biology, genes are information. They are coded information. It even looks like computer information. I mean, a chromosome is a great long computer tape. It's linear, it runs one-dimensional, digital code. It's not binary, it's quaternary, but apart from that, it's just the same as computer tape. It's read in sequence. It's copied and pasted from one part of the organism to another in just the same way as a computer programmer would copy and paste. So biology has turned into computer science, and the sort of mystification of biology, which was still possible when people could talk about a life force, a vital fluid, things like that, essentially skyhook explanations. That's completely out. You can never hear anybody talking nonsense like that anymore. And it's all, I won't say it's all due to Watson and Crick, but it was Watson and Crick that really finally torpedoed that kind of thinking.
Okay, so even Richard Dawkins, the
poster boy
of the hardcore evolutionary atheist worldview, concedes that it is literal, not figurative. He even goes, not in this interview, but he, in his books, in papers, he literally makes the point that, when he's questioned, and he's been questioned on this topic of like where did it come from, he just brushes it aside that it just somehow happened. He even was a huge proponent of the whole, it came from outer space explanation for the origins of the genetic code. So everything that he just described as it being is not just analogous, synonym, or, simile or analogy or metaphor. It's literal. And there's many other instances of which I can take and prove this point. And so they're ultimately relying on the fact that somehow this just happened, which is the entire point of my argument there of like, okay, fine. Is it the rational conclusion that if the genetic code contains 1 through 4,
very weak argument, man,
then 6, 7, and 8 must be true, and therefore it is the rational conclusion that the intelligent agent must be required?
I guess there's another way for me to
hang on. Before you respond to that, I want you to respond to the point that you were making before I played that clip, which was that the whole argument that I was making in terms of why I'm making the comparison is not actually a valid one. So,
yeah, I think someone that looks at a physical system and claims that they infer design, there is a logical issue there, right? I don't think that. I think what's going on there rather is that you're drawing from background information, and that's where the inference comes.
No, it comes from the the thing in question.
So Danny, let me ask you this. So we are the highest level technology companies on this planet are investing billions of dollars into using DNA for data storage and to create DNA computation computers. Let's do a hypothetical here, okay? We find in a test tube that is inside of a rock that, per the evolutionary timeline and all the radiometric dating techniques, says that it is 2 billion years old, okay? We're looking through this and we're able to determine, we crack the code of that DNA sequence that's in this little test tube we found that's inside a rock that's 2 billion years old. And there are schematics for robot technologies and for high-level information processing systems. Would you say that I am now inferring the fact that this data must have been placed by an intelligent agent into that DNA strand?
Yeah, I think that what's going on there is that you're drawing your background information from robots, from schematics, these sorts of things. You have background knowledge of, and then you have a set of observations that corresponds to your previous experiences with these things, and then you make an inference, right?
You're dodging the question. We found this strand of DNA in a test tube, in a literal test tube that was inside of a rock that, per radiometric dating, said it was 2 billion years old. We then scientists then study this strand of DNA, and they realize they're able to crack the genetic data storage code. Okay, right now, as we speak, this is exactly what is being done around the world. Okay, we're creating this right now in real time. I'm not making this up. This is not sci-fi. This is happening right now. Okay, so we find a strand of DNA in a test tube that is 2 billion years old, and we're like, holy crap, there is data stored in this. Let's crack it. We do. And then what we determine is that it's robots and schematics.
Do not eat.
Is it just I'm just now inferring that based on my background knowledge and information? I'm just inferring that these are freaking schematics of robots?
Yeah.
Or are they literal schematics of robots?
Well, no, they can. Those are not mutually exclusive. You're inferring that they're literal schematics, right?
I am.
Okay, and it's from your knowledge of schematics.
Dude, if it's different parts, that if you put them together, it result in an end predetermined outcome. I don't really.
I'm not really seeing the disagreement. I mean, look,
you're trying to argue semantics to somehow dodge the reality that a protein is a literal nanorobot that has a pre-existing schematic that is data stored in a sequence in a gene.
If what we have here is a semantic dispute, what words are we disagreeing about?
Okay, you're still trying to say that I'm just inferring this based on my that somehow this does not dramatically lend itself to the conclusion of the intelligent agent.
No, well, no, I'm not saying that, right? Look, maybe you're misunderstanding me. All I'm saying is this, right? That you might have a plausible inference, right? But none of the inference, right, is going to be based on your background information about computers, codes, all this information that you have.
Okay. What else could we invoke? What else could we invoke for the origin of life? Tell us.
Well, no, but this is my point. The point is that you don't look at the structure itself.
Oh, yes, we do.
And
no. Yes, we do.
You're not letting me finish.
Do you realize, honestly, that they literally study the freaking cell 24/7 in every country? I mean, do you at least
look? I don't think what I'm saying is that controversial. Just please hear me out. Here's what I'm saying: when you have the first set of scientists that study DNA, and they're like, oh my gosh, this is like a code, right? They only could do that.
It is a code.
No, not like a code. It is a code.
If you do, I would like to finish, please.
It is a code. It's not an allegory. It's a code.
All right,
it's not that long. I can grant that.
Let him finish his point after we'll respond to it. All right,
yeah. This is my point. Whoever started first on investigating DNA and came to the conclusion that it was a code, right, could have only made that determination if they already had a concept of what a code was prior to that discovery, right?
Exactly the point.
It's written instruction for crying out loud.
You know what codes are. So I think you're fixing something by saying that. You're not doing anything but pointing out that's exactly the basis.
Yeah, the obvious. It's like, what's a wheel? Yeah. What is a wheel? What is a wheel?
But I thought that y'all want to say that you inferred functionality from the observation of the DNA itself. But that doesn't. That's not what's happening.
It is functionality.
It
is a code.
It's like a computer code. So when there's something that go wrong in the computer, you know when you go on your computer, you have the troubleshoot, right?
Is like DNA.
Yeah.
But go ahead.
Well, quick. You know when you go on your computer, when something's wrong in your computer, you have like the option, right? Troubleshoot, and it'll fix a problem, right? It'll look for a problem. This is literally what your buddy's doing currently. There's problem in your buddy. Well, heal everything in repair. And are you actually being honest right now? Are you gonna grant?
Well, I'm not so sure you understand what I'm saying.
Well, real quick, Danny, are you at least gonna grant that there was an intelligent design?
Say something intelligible.
We're not saying it's a god right now or the god of Allah or anything like that. We're saying, do you accept that there's an intelligent design that created that?
That created the computer, you said?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I agree.
Okay, so do you agree that our body's a computer?
No.
Wow.
Here you go, Tony.
Denial.
You gotta
denial.
love
What is it? What else would you compare DNA code to?
Danny, what's the difference between a calculator and a computer?
A calculator and a computer? Mm-hmm. It seems like there's just different orders of complexity, right? I'm not so sure.
There's mechanical calculators too.
One of the fundamental differences is a calculator has preset functions.
Yeah.
The computer has the ability to add, take away, modify data, read, write, and erase.
Yeah, for the most part, you don't program calculators.
So what do you think is happening in your body?
Yeah, when something go wrong, like
we have data, we have function, we have code, we have processing.
Well, can I ask a question?
We have the ability to modify in real time.
Yeah, I mean,
we can read, write, and erase information that modifies pre-existing code function.
So, Danny, so what is DNA?
Yeah, I'm gonna
What
ask
would you compare DNA code to? Diet Coke?
Wait, I'm gonna ask a question. Y'all are not gonna be fans of the question, but please, if you could, work with me here, right? Because you guys and me are have diametrically opposed views, and I'm not. I really think that a lot of my view hinges on this question, right? My question is that if there was a tornado, let's say, went through a junkyard and assembled a computer, would you call it a computer?
The
How would you
question
prove
is,
that actually even
the
happened?
question. Hold on. The question is baseless because it presupposes that possibility,
Well, what's the contradiction?
and it's irrational to believe that an undirected process could create this complex.
No, I'm saying
specificity,
logical
functionality.
possibility.
The question is irrational.
No, I'm
Sorry.
talking about
Fred
logical
Hoyle.
I mean,
Fred Hoyle. Yeah,
Okay,
that's
okay,
why
hey,
Fred.
Hey guys, hang on. Neff, finish your point. When Neff gets done, Tony, you can go, and then who wants to go after Tony?
I just want to go. I just want to ask a question.
No, Will, hey, we're gonna go in order. We're gonna keep this structured. Hang on, Neff, go ahead and finish your point. Then Tony, then Will. Go ahead, Neff.
Well, it's just simple. The question is moot. It's obviously a straw manic question. It posits that it's plausible to believe that there could be such a scenario as a tornado creating a computer, and that's just not. That's not true. That isn't plausible idea.
I'm not saying.
So
I'm saying possible.
that's like
not
this
plausible.
is like saying, hey, if you could see.
I didn't say plausible. Don't tell me in my view.
It's just it's a false.
I'm
premise.
saying possible.
Well, no, the thing is, John's argument is only about our world.
Fred Hoyle came up with that statement, by the way, Danny. That was Fred Hoyle you took that from, and he went from hardcore atheist to agnostic deist because of that information argument, because it was so absurd for a tornado to go through a junkyard and produce, a 747. And that's exactly what he saw for DNA.
Is that
Hang on.
No, he saw it as beyond absurd, and that's why he turned to sort of deist.
Sure. I understand that there are people that switch sides based on arguments, but when I'm asking, I'm from what I'm understanding is that you think it's impossible.
Yeah, it is impossible.
Beyond absurd. Yeah.
Hang
Is it programmed?
Hang on, real quick, Danny.
Yeah.
In order for that tornado to go through the junkyard and create the computer, does there have to be scraps of pre-existing circuits, wires, silicone microchips, the different pieces of the CPU, the glass, the LEDs, or whatever mechanism being used to project the light onto the monitor? Do all of those components have to be pre-existing in the junkyard in order for this tornado, as it goes through, to turn it into a computer?
No, not logically necessary. No.
Okay, so is it plausible then?
Well, are you mean probable or
no? Is it plausible that if you don't have all of these parts, is it remotely plausible that even if a freaking tornado goes through an infinite number of times, that it's going to create a computer?
Yeah, it's highly unintuitive, right? And in that sense,
so it is neither logical nor plausible nor probable to reach the conclusion that a tornado going through a junkyard, it's going to assemble a computer.
Yeah, I'm not gonna.
Okay, so is it remotely plausible that the parts that would be needed could somehow have created themselves?
Well, I think it could create itself, but I'm saying I could grant that it's implausible. I can grant that it's improbable. I don't know what you mean by logical.
Can I ask Danny a question real quick?
Okay, Will gets to go next, then Chris. Go ahead, Will.
Yeah. Okay. So, when you look at something that looks super complex, what does come in your mind?
Very complex. It's just kind of amazing, right?
Yeah, right. So if you look like let's just say the Bible, right? Someone printed that; it just didn't write itself, right?
Sorry, repeat your question.
When you look, just take a long book like Harry Potter.
Yeah.
When you watch at the book, right? Someone write it down, right?
Well, based on my background knowledge of Harry Potter, yeah, J.K. Rowling wrote it.
Yeah. So let's say you're speaking. How many letters is there in the DNA, Tony? Or I think it's
3 billion.
There are 5 nucleotides in DNA, 5 nucleotides in total.
Yeah, so just imagine all those number writing itself on a paper, right? And it must be put in the right order, right? In order to make words. Would you say that's probable?
I'm not going to dispute that it seems that way.
Then why don't you believe in intelligent design, dude? Like
Because
literally,
that's not look, if it's something seems a certain way, it doesn't mean it's true.
Well, same for abiogenesis. Then. The same goes for abiogenesis.
I agree with you.
Okay, so if you came across a Eiffel Tower made out of freaking Legos, would you ever conclude that an intelligent agent had not put all the Legos together in the appropriate order to represent a Eiffel Tower?
No, I would think that was intentional. Absolutely.
Okay,
Oh, here you go.
So why not DNA?
now, hang on. Now you have a Lego car that has a battery in it and wheels, and if you push a button, it zips across the floor. Would you say that that is also the result of an intelligent agent?
Yeah.
Okay, if you have a solar-powered car made out of Legos that can zip across the floor, would you say that's also an intelligent agent who created that?
Yeah.
Would you ever conclude that it's a logical, plausible, or probable conclusion in any way, shape, form, or fashion with an infinite amount of time and an infinite number of universes? There was no intelligent agent that said solar-powered car made of Legos could ever exist.
Well, I think it's logically possible, but I would be very surprised.
So you're saying it'd be a valid and a sound argument from a logic perspective that somehow that thing
No,
created an
I didn't want to
intelligent
say
agent?
that. It's just logically possible.
Okay, so no, you can't. No, you can come up with an argument from a logic perspective for anything. That's why I say things are they logical, plausible, and probable? Are they sound and valid? Because philosophers, especially atheist philosophers, love to try and dance around and say, "Oh, because I can come up with some random freaking logic argument from a prop logic perspective that can."
No, I don't think I'm doing that.
That's my question.
I don't want to do
It
that.
doesn't actually
Let me
have
ask
to be
you
a
a question.
remotely rational conclusion, which is why, again, I always insert, is it logical, plausible, and probable in terms of your outcome, in your conclusion? If it is not, then why the hell even make the argument when
not
for
making an
your, I'm
argument.
talking about, I'm talking in general, but I'm also just
Okay.
directing these at you, of why would you even say, this isn't the most rational conclusion? No, you say, you still double down on, well, just because it seems true doesn't mean that it is. So again, Danny, I'm assuming you have an IQ probably above 120.
Wait, would you
So-
disagree with that claim, by the way? Like, just
Hang on,
because it
I'm
seems-
assuming you have an IQ above 120, right?
I
So
don't. I've never really.
You're obviously a very intelligent guy, so you're not an idiot. Therefore, you don't have the excuse of being a dumbass to not be able to reach the obvious conclusion of, at some point, I am going to have to conclude that this is the rational explanation. And you don't have the excuse of being an idiot to not be able to just keep dodging.
And Danny, do you think
what question
panspermia
am I
is plausible?
dodging, though?
Danny,
Danny, let me ask you a
panspermia?
question. Let me ask you a question, Danny. I'm gonna step in for a second.
Hey, speak up a little bit, Chris. You're a little bit soft.
Okay, sorry. Let me turn my mic up. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, you're good.
Yeah.
Do you apply the same level of skepticism and everything else in your life? Do you think it's possible that you're applying a level of skepticism here that is just like John saying, just going to give you? There's no way you'll ever accept that it could be a code.
No, I'm not a global skeptic.
Well, it seems to me from listening here for painfully listening to this for quite a while, it's that you don't probably apply the same level of skepticism in your daily life to everything else.
Well, of course. Wait, what do you think I'm being skeptical? Wait, so I guess there's a lot of confusion here, right? Like I don't think even the most staunch Christian philosophers agree that it's logically possible that like a car could be assembled from a junkyard as a result of a natural disaster, right? This is not controversial in philosophy,
What's
right?
your best? Okay, where do you think life started?
Well, I don't know where. I mean, what's
your best argument on this planet, another universe, another planet, under a rock, deep sea vent? Where?
Yeah, you've got to have what's your best?
I don't have very strong views about this, right? I mean, I'm just when I'm trying right now. We just want to start with this,
right? So, okay, where do you think information originally generated from? Best argument, go.
Well, do you mean like covariance between, or do you mean
the
like
first code? I don't mean cat scratched on a rock. That's a nonsense argument.
Didn't he?
What?
He said information, did he not?
Well, look, smoke is information for fire.
No,
but it's
that's not true.
Information.
No, Smoke does not constitute information.
Yeah, Detroit.
Wait, what?
Information. Let me
Smoke
give you a
constitutes
definition of information. Information is knowledge conveyed from a sender to a receiver using a language agreed
Knowledge
upon
is
by both
intentional,
parties. I
Knowledge-
didn't even get to finish my sentence.
I'm
Let me
just-
say.
I'm
Let me
interjecting.
try it again. Okay, you can comment when I'm done. Information is knowledge conveyed from a sender to a receiver using a language agreed upon by both parties. I'll give you an example. Two stargazers are staring at a star. One of them observes the star and notices it's particularly blue. There's no information yet. All there is an observation about the properties of the star. Now, he turns to another stargazer and says, "Do you see that star? It's particularly blue." Now you've created information because knowledge has been conveyed from a sender to a receiver, and they both have to agree upon the language. If one speaks Portuguese and the other guy Swahili, there's no communication. No knowledge is conveyed. No informing, no information. Just
May I respond?
blabble, just babble coming out of the mouth. No information, nothing translatable has been presented to a receiver. Okay, so the properties of a thing do not constitute material objects, do not constitute information. Concepts do not. Physical properties of things. Characteristics of things do not constitute information. This is a great fallacy that tremendous number of people you employ, especially atheists. They'll say, well, the information coming from the sun, okay, error. Information doesn't come from the sun. Radiation comes from the sun. Okay.
Yep.
I think the notion of knowledge is intentional.
Information is a non-material fundamental entity produced only by an intelligence.
And there's multiple languages. Multiple languages in the generate
information. The way that you first defined information, use the word knowledge, but knowledge is intentional.
Yeah, that's what we're trying to say.
Yeah.
Right. So if you say that there's knowledge prior to, let's say, human beings or life, right? Then of course it follows that there's an intention, there's an agent, right? But
genetic information is
hang on. Danny, you're going down the typical atheist attempted escape route of whole knowledge, therefore implies the intention, all those different things, right? Okay, so while that end being the end conclusion of that actually being in place is correct, you also are trying to lean on the knowledge piece more from the human interpretation side versus other aspects of knowledge. So you have information, what is conveyed or represented by a particular arrangement or sequence of things. Irony of ironies in the Oxford Dictionary, literally what they use to describe it is genetically transmitted or transferred information. It's a irony. But from an information theory perspective, it's a mathematical quantity expressing the probability of occurrence of a particular sequence of symbols, impulses, etc., as contrasted with that of alternative sequences. Neither of those is going down with this whole intention aspect that you're trying to go. However, when they are organized into prescriptive function and they have syntax and semantics, there is literally no instance in any of their context in which a human who is not a literal retard would come to the conclusion that there was not an intelligent agent that was required for the organization of that information into the prescribed outcome. And there's even, you can get in information theory, you can even go even deeper into prescriptive and functional information. Like there's like literal exposés on like their meaning, and they apply exactly, and there are literal papers on the subject of the prescriptive and the functional information in genetics.
But that presupposes a mind. Those notions of
no, it doesn't presuppose. It's the inference of mind that we get from the properties of DNA.
But presumably, you're inferring.
We're not presuming a mind. We're inferring a mind is necessary based on the properties of it.
Do you mean logically necessary or some kind of a
Yes,
different?
necessary in every
Basically,
way.
you need a
That
God.
means the negation is going to be a contradiction, but I don't
I
see
mean,
that.
this infinite wisdom,
for crying out loud.
understanding, and
You
Well,
don't
quick,
you're not gaining any space here.
Well, look,
I'm sorry.
here,
all right, Danny.
All we can see is denialism of things that are widely accepted and logically irrefutable. Logically irrefutable.
what have I said that
Danny.
you disagreed with directly?
Well, you're giving the title information to material objects. That's a mistake.
Well, no, I don't think I'm not doing that. I deny that. I don't think you can do that, and that's part of my actually criticism of you. I think that's what you're doing.
No. Information is non-material.
Wait, so are genes material or non-material?
No, that's a medium. Information is
So
all
then there's no
information requires a
information.
physical
The
medium.
genes are not information.
No, the genes is information.
They
The
carry
gene.
Then it's not
Let me no. Let me explain.
contradicted
Give
yourself.
me the floor just a minute, guys, please.
You contradicted yourself.
Okay, no. You're completely not understanding.
Is
this very
information
simple.
material or non-material?
Let me explain.
listen.
Listen, and you'll learn. You're completely conflating the medium with the information. Information has no mass or dimension. It's non-physical. Information requires a physical medium in order to be conveyed.
What's the
Hey,
argument for that?
we're stuck in a three-dimensional world. It's
What's
made
the
of
argument
matter.
for that?
Yeah. Okay, so how do I
Well,
convey
God
knowledge
doesn't-
to
but
you?
He doesn't require
Well,
Hang
listen
on,
for a
Danny, let
second.
him
Slow
talk.
down
1
and
second.
learn something.
No,
Okay?
you're just
Slow down and learn something. Okay?
propositions.
Let me
Let's slow
explain to
down.
you.
Let's get to
No,
the
you
bottom
slow
of it.
down and you'll learn it.
Does
I'm
God
going to
have
answer
a
your
Go
question.
and listen.
Look,
I'm going to
presumably
answer
you're
your
saying-
question.
Danny, let Neff finish.
I've been talking over
I'm
so
going
much.
to answer your
Here-
question.
No,
You
no,
say I
look,
We've been
presuppose
very
this.
patient.
I want to
man.
review.
I'm going to explain it to
right?
you, sport.
Danny, I know where Neff is going with this. You have interrupted his point. He has not finished his point that's countering your original one. Let him finish, and then we'll give you the floor, okay?
Fine.
Okay, so Danny, information requires a physical medium in order to be conveyed. If I'm to inform you of something, how am I going to do it without doing one of the following?
May I
I have
respond?
to create. Be quiet and listen, please. I have to create sound waves that will go into your ear that are translated by your brain so that you get the knowledge. Okay. Or I have to be able to write it down so you can visually see a code system and you can interpret the symbols and gain the knowledge that I had in my mind. That's how I'm going to convey it. Whenever you convey information, you requires a physical medium. But the information is not the medium. Be quiet and listen.
You're just
Mute the guy for a minute.
Listen.
If
Just
you
mute
take
him for a
less, I'll never
second.
be able to respond. Let me respond to your point.
No, you haven't allowed me to
He's not
finish, so you'll
done.
understand.
We
I
can't
won't be
move on if I
forever.
finish the first premise.
It's taking forever because you won't let me the 15,
Don't
25
make me
seconds.
mute you. He's almost done.
Give me the 25, 30 seconds to explain, and you don't have to constantly try to interrupt. Okay? Otherwise, we go on for minutes and minutes and minutes. Okay. So now, information is a non-physical fundamental entity. To convey it requires a physical medium. You're conflating the medium with the information. For example, I'll give you an example of how you know information is non-physical and why you need a medium to convey it and why it's separate from the medium. Let's say I want to share with you the New Testament. I can do it a number of ways. I can read it to you and you can hear me. I can type it up in an email and shoot it to you by electronic signal. I can write it down on paper and mail it to you. I could write it in the sky with an airplane that writes with smoke. I could write it on the beach in the sand. There's any number of ways. But every time I convey that information to you, the information in the Bible does not change at all, even though it jumps from one medium to another. This proves that the medium itself, the physical matter onto which is encoded so that it can be interpreted and the information received, is the medium only. It is not the information. The information that is the Bible has no mass, is not made of anything physical.
And it's in a language.
The book is only a medium. And the proof of this, and then I'll be done. The proof of this is in every example in which I encode a medium with the information that's in the Bible, when I say I'm going to share the knowledge that's in this book with you, not one particle of matter moves from that book to any other medium or to anywhere else. And yet I can convey that information unchanged from the book. This proves that the information in the book is knowledge stored only by the arrangement of symbols. The information itself does not physically exist at all. Okay,
all right. If I could respond, I don't think a Christian should accept this, right? Because there's big implications on here with respect to God's communication, right? Presumably, you're going to say the information originally came from God. So God has some kind of information. And I agree with you that it's non-physical, right? But if you're saying that in order to transfer that information, that you require, right, a material entity, a medium, right, then that means that God will require a medium in order to create or communicate anything, right?
Yes, to convey it to something, to someone,
So
he requires a
God
medium.
can't communicate to you without a material thing?
If he's conveying,
He's the maker of the material things.
if he's conveying it in a world made of matter, a medium is necessary.
I don't. So you repeat that last line for me because I didn't understand.
We're entities made of matter in a material world.
You think you're matter or your body is matter?
Well, I can't receive anything. My spirit doesn't receive anything without input. The physical world is how our spirit receives.
Well, how does the Holy Spirit?
What you're attempting to do is go down a rabbit hole that's endless, where you think you can take one step backward away from the truth endlessly and hide. You can't. I've already demonstrated that information is non-material. I've proven that by proving that I can convey every bit of information in the Bible with you without changing it or transporting any of the book to anywhere else.
Hey, so Danny, so that argument that I put into the little slide there,
the 9 premises, or
that is, I literally pulled that from a script I was writing earlier this afternoon for a video I'm going to do. Okay.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to read you a couple sentences that are going to come after I display that argument. Okay.
Okay.
Now, before you immediately start screaming, this has nothing to do with God. Notice I literally said intelligent agent. So for once in your life, don't immediately run to your I don't believe in the Christian God, therefore your argument is false safe space. And keep in mind, this is part 1 of the argument. But before I do a video explaining the argument even further, I really want to see if any atheists or agnostics can come up with a valid counter to this. And before allowing yourself to be triggered and start insisting it's not really a code, the entire point of this argument is agreeing on the assumption that the genetic code actually is a literal one. Yada, yada, yada. Okay. Anyway, my point is that you are literally going down the rabbit hole that I am predicting in the script that I wrote this afternoon, and based on the argument that was presented, you're literally going down the rabbit hole, and which is avoiding the entire part. You jumped from initially when Neff started talking, you were going on is information physical, not whatever, and then he got done annihilating that position. And you know he did.
I don't think information.
And you jumped to the God claim.
Yeah, I'm trying to show that his account can't be right. A Christian should never accept his account. I don't know any Christian.
What does the Christian have to do with whether or not the point that we've been discussing all day about information code, etc., is valid or invalid?
Presumably, you want to give a functional account of genes, which requires God. And God has the information, right?
Well, actually, everything we've been talking about was that it requires an intelligent agent, correct?
Well, sure. Presumably, you think that's God.
Reach that point, but I'm saying that you're trying to jump, like every single atheist I ever interact with. They want to avoid having to reach the conclusion that, okay, intelligent agent is required based on the observable and inferences, both the observable evidence and the inferences that can be derived from it. That just foundational piece. What you're obviously doing right now is you're attempting to say, well, because you believe in an immaterial God, therefore what you're saying actually isn't a rational or the sound conclusion. And therefore I don't actually have to force myself to consider my own worldview that says that none of this.
Wait, what did you take our disagreement to be between the information, material, non-material thing? I think you've misunderstood it.
Well, address what I just said.
Well, I don't think I'm doing what you're saying.
So are you conceding that if information is immaterial and it requires intelligent agency for the values to be assigned, and that is exactly what we observe in the fundamental requirement for life to exist, whether the intelligent agent is physical, non-physical, whatever, is it the rational conclusion that one is required?
Well, that's contradictory, I think, what you just said, right? Because I don't think you could observe on like information like in the way that you're saying, right? You're saying information is non-physical, so in principle, it can't be like.
Am I physically transmitting the information that is coming out of my mouth right now to you?
He thinks that the maker of matter can't concatenate matter.
Are you giving me information? Like we're you and I are having a discussion. I've learned something from you. You've learned something from me.
Right. Are we physically interacting?
Yeah, our bodies are physically interacting. They're hearing sound waves and such, and that is causing us to form beliefs.
Well, no. In terms of the material, okay, am I currently, from a material perspective, am I materially transmitting it personally? Am I transmitting information to you personally?
Yeah, I think you're intending to like share information with me.
Right. I'm talking from a material. No, I'm talking from a materialistic perspective. Is like you're hearing sound waves on your end, right?
Yeah.
But the information that's coming from me, I assume you're in the United States somewhere, but we're not anywhere remotely close, right? Yeah. So I could be the immaterial agent that is transmitting immaterial information to you, but it's now in your brain, right?
Well, I don't think there's so much here. I mean, look, this is tricky, right? I don't think you're transmitting like knowledge to me, like in the way that like, like a physical thing, it moves to another location, right? I don't.
Okay. So let's think about this from a 3D printing perspective, right? Okay. So if I have a program, right, that's going to 3D print a freaking Batman figurine, right? Is there anything about the ones and zeros that are stored either in flash format or in on a magnetic hard drive, right? Is the information that's stored in that medium is it material at all?
Yeah, so I think everything.
No. Is the information that can be turned into a three-dimensional object, does it have material?
I don't. That doesn't make any sense to me. I don't think information is material.
You're not listening.
Okay.
Wait, you acknowledged information is non-physical?
Yes. I've said that. You don't listen.
No, we've heard you on that, but we were going down the rabbit hole as you were doing the jump to, well, I don't think the Christians believe in God. And God is immaterial. Therefore, God couldn't interact with the physical, correct?
Yeah, I was showing that he was saying that it was necessary.
No. Answer my point. Was the position that you were going down? Mm-hmm. Was it that the Christians believe in an immaterial God? Therefore, if he's immaterial, how did he interact with the physical world?
No, that was not my objection.
Well, that's sure seems where you're going with it. Where were you going with it? Go ahead and explain why Christians shouldn't jump to the conclusion that God must exist for the physical to exist. Go ahead.
Oh no. That's not what I was disputing. This is the claim that I was disputing. This is what Nephilim said. He said, in order to have information, there necessarily must be a medium in which to store.
No, in order to convey information in a physical realm, a physical medium is required.
Right. So that's to say, to have communication, necessarily there must be material. But that means
in a physical realm.
Well, then
matter exists.
That's not what you said initially. You revised
matter exists.
Then it becomes a formative principle.
That's my response to your attempt to make an argument that information is non-material.
Wait, but then this doesn't make any sense. You're saying that information is non-physical, is stored in a medium in a physical realm, but if there's a non-physical entity in a physical realm, you don't have a physical realm.
That's not the thing. Is God can?
No. You're first off, your error is trying to argue that God can't convey information without a physical medium. God's capable of doing whatever He chooses to do.
That's what I was pointing out to you.
Well, that's God. That's
It's a
not
matter.
humans
Can-
stuck in a physical world.
Well, then that means that your claim is only true of humans. What's the argument for that?
It's true. It's true in this physical world for humans. That's correct.
We're
For
not
information. It doesn't have any argument against the fact that information is non-physical.
Yeah.
Because in a physical world, we require a physical medium to convey information. Just look, it's really
What's the
simple.
argument for
In
that?
order for a fish to swim, it needs water. Okay, so in a physical realm, in order for information to move, it needs a physical medium.
Well, you're just talking about natural laws.
No, I'm just making a point.
Well, look, I
verified.
Comparison,
I verified that
to say that that's not possible.
I verified that point by demonstrating to you that I can convey for you the entire New Testament from one medium to another, and the information doesn't change whatever. And the medium,
yeah, I'm not disputing that.
Doesn't have to move anywhere.
You're making
my
a
point is
necessary claim. A particular
no,
is not
my point is valid.
Necessary claim.
I've supported my point then.
No, and a particular is not going to support a necessary claim.
No,
right?
I'm sorry. I made my point. I verified what I said.
Danny, are you arguing that because from a materialist perspective, you can't necessarily explain how God would have conveyed the information, therefore it's not reasonable to conclude that even though we recognize an intelligent agent would be necessary for what we see as the outcome, because we can't explain that portion of it, that the necessity of it is not valid?
Okay, I don't think that's what I'm saying, but
I'm asking you, is that what you're saying?
I don't think so. Right, but
seems like what you're saying.
I want to say I have to.
What are you saying?
Let me say two things.
It's not saying
I got to leave in about 20 minutes. Okay,
so argue again.
Cut it off in
I
20
have
minutes,
no
okay?
idea what he's saying at all.
Wait, 1 second, guys. I've spent a long time talking. I gotta spend some time with my girlfriend. Okay,
and you've said nothing.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah, so I have to leave in 20 minutes. Now, look, I would be very happy if I'm just be understood. I want to just be. I want you to understand what I'm saying. I don't even. I could be wrong. I could be. I mean, that's fine. I just want to be understood. That's my goal here. Okay, and I would be very happy. Okay, so here's what I'm saying. I agree with you guys that information is not physical. So now there's a problem here, right? If information is not physical, that means when you're looking at something physical, you can't be seeing information. Okay, so that's essentially
right. You see the symbols that represent it,
but that's
interpretation of it. The interpretation of the information is processed in a mind.
Are the symbols physical? Yes or no?
The symbols are physical. The information
is that
itself.
Information?
No, symbols are not information. Symbols are a code. All information.
Is code information?
All information requires a code in a physical realm. All information requires a code for interpretation.
What's the argument for that?
Okay, so does
can you examine imagine every example of the transfer of information and see if you can imagine one? Give me an example of one that doesn't use
arguments. Don't start with questions.
Code.
I want to hear what logic LPP was saying.
Well, I've proven my point by proving I can share information without moving in the Bible.
The shape of the letter A, equals ah.
All right.
If you have P, the letter P, L, E. Now you put them all together, what do you have?
Oh, I'm so ADD. So you're
A-P-P-L-E, you have apple, right?
Okay, thank you. Okay.
So the combination of the AAP, the sounds that are assigned to those letters equal a sound, right? When you put them together, they can equal a word, which can be assigned to equal an object, right?
Well, okay. Well, just remember, I'm not. I just want to be understood. So that's my goal.
Well, I get it. You want to be understood, but the point that's being made is now I can have that written down in 2 dimensions on a piece of paper, right? Well, actually, technically 3, really, but that's easy.
Yeah, I understand.
2, right? You can have it in a wood block, right, of the shape of the letter A, right? You can have it as a recorded sound, right? So let's say we put the mic on record right now, and I'm saying ah, 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 or letter A, you know, A, that kind of thing, right? It can be recorded in an electronic format, stored in data on a thumb drive, right? And then it can be executed, and you hear the sound, or it could be the sound waves could be translated through a translation mechanism into the physical letter. And what do you think voice to text is, right, on your phone?
Right. Okay.
Okay. So you've been able to translate these things into all these different mediums, which hold them, and even different shapes and different formats, right? But they're still all equal the same thing, correct?
I mean, do you think that the inscription to and the word or the inscription, so like there's a symbol for two, right? And then there's the TWO inscripted on a piece of paper. Those don't have meaning in themselves. Those are physical entities, right? What
Correct.
gives them meaning is namely a person, an agent.
Correct.
Right.
Hang on.
I'm almost done. What I'm trying to say is that if information is non-physical, right, then the symbol itself, the physical representation, is not going to be the information itself.
Correct. The semantic meaning.
That's correct.
The semantic meaning of it is immaterial.
But this applies to DNA as well.
Correct. And the semantic meaning is immaterial, but you have to have this is where the translation mechanism becomes so important, because you have to have the intelligent agent assign the equalization of the two immaterial semantic meanings of the symbol. This is the entire point that's been being made for the last 2 hours, is that you have, just like with voice to text translation, right? It can read the and turn it into a symbolic representation of the letter A. But somebody had to know and to create the translation mechanism to make in a sound wave equal to A on your phone. This is the exact logic. And prior to all that happening, somebody back in the day had to decide that the letter A sounded like freaking A. And there's the long and the short version of it. And there's the capital and the lowercase, like I said. Well, the exact same thing is what's going on in biological systems. You have, and by the way, man, there's papers written on the syntactic, semantic, and pragmatic meanings of the genetic code, as an example, right? There's pragmatic modification to the interpretation based on the context in the overall sequence, in addition to modified interpretation based on epitranscriptome information that's assigned to an mRNA prior to protein synthesis. Wow. So there's all sorts of things that are going on that are literally doing things like, in the word, in different words in English language, as an example, are there some times when we have like a silent letter, right? Yeah. When we say the entire word, we have a silent letter, even though by itself you would still say that it's, T or whatever, right? Or what's the whole thing of I before E except after C, or in sound like Blaze, neighbor, and way, or whatever, when you're figuring out which order to put I and E. There's all these different variations. Well, this is exactly what we're observing in the real world of how life exists. So either you have to claim that somehow these contextual interpretations and alterations to meaning happen by themselves, or they have to be, and they have the translation mechanisms which are able to interpret the variable meaning. Or you have to say they happen by undirected process. That's where we're at. There is no way around this in the now known beyond all doubt scientific knowledge base. This is where we are. This is not hyperbole. This is not supposition. This is not hypothesis. This is the literal reality of where we are. And which is why, in the context of this argument that this dialogue and argumentation we're having back and forth, is that this is where we are now. And atheists can no longer avoid this. You either have to deny it, or you have to accept it, or you have to refuse to even go and learn the information for yourself, and then go back to either A or B. That's where we're at.
I'm going to say a quick response, and then you can have the last word, and then I have to go. Okay?
And real quick before you leave, Danny, I just want to check a word to you, if it's okay.
Check a what?
Just check a word. I just want to tell you something before you leave.
Oh, okay. So here, let's just establish the things that we do agree on, right? And I promise you, I'll get to what you're saying. Okay, we agree that information is non-physical, right? We also agree that there are striking similarities between the codes that we develop in computers and the code and what we see in DNA. That we call it a code, even so, because it's so strikingly similar. I agree that it does really seem like there's a designer, right? Although a lot of people that are not like us, right, that don't have that intuition, I find it kind of insane that they don't have the intuition. Okay, so what we agree on is that really does seem that there's a designer. What we agree on also is that DNA really does have striking similarities with computers and computer codes. Okay, so where we disagree about, okay, here's what I disagree. I think you agree. Well, this might be in a point of agreement. We both agree that it's not sufficient to say that it seems this way, therefore it's true. I don't think you ever meant to give that kind of argument, right? So our further disagreement is that I don't know if this is a point of contention, but I believe it is. I don't think you can see a physical thing and see its information, right? I think that when we attribute information to a physical thing, we're operating on what other people that we know, other agents, how they typically use that kind of substrata or that kind of physical pattern or substrate, right? And I think that is the crux of our disagreement, believe it or not, right? I know there's a lot more, right? But I think I'm comfortable with just ending it there for myself, and then yeah.
No, fair enough.
Yeah.
What you got something you want to say before Danny takes off?
Yeah, real quick, Danny, do you like reading book?
Do I like reading books? I am
Yeah.
usually okay. I force myself to read. I actually I'm crippled with ADD. If that's even a real thing, I just get easily distracted. But what book did you have in mind? I won't.
Yeah, I'll drop you a link in private chat, okay? It's 50 gigabyte of apologetic book. So you have evolutionist book, you have creationist book, you have philosophy from an atheist worldview, and you have a bunch of atheist vs theist worldview. So if you want to read they're all free. It's linked. There's
that's
50
pretty sweet of
gigabyte
you.
of book over there. They're all separated in different folders. So just here, I'll drop it in private chat. Keep it in
Yeah,
a
I'm
folder
clicking on the
somewhere.
Google Drive right now.
Yeah, there's 50 gigabytes. So I would recommend you to all install it to your computer if you have the place.
Oh, this has Yeah, I was reading about, and you have Greg Bonson in here too. Interesting. Okay, yeah, I'm looking. Thank you. That's very sweet of you. Okay, I'm gonna head out now. Y'all can talk bad about me.
No, we're not.
But
No.
but just so you know, I have this. I'm just kidding. I'm not gonna have the stream on. I'm not that weird. But I have to go. Y'all have a good one.
Have a good one, Dave.
All right,
Appreciate you
peace out.
coming. Now we're not going to talk bad about you.
Just,
Oh, that was
just
a
be
fun
aware
time.
that
Danny
This
is
is
one
being
of the
recorded.
more. I actually can tolerate having a conversation with him. He at least has reasonable dialogue. I'm going to shut up because I know I ran my mouth a bunch.
well, they
Number-
made some
Number, you were
changes.
saying something, right?
Yeah, he
He was-
seemed a
he
lot
made
more
some changes.
reasonable.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Stanley.
No, I was just gonna say that was a good conversation. I was kind of wiped from the debate, so it was nice just sitting back and listening.
SFT was
a whole day of food, so
yeah, SFT was cleaning his room because he was scared of his wife.
yeah. So that was a good discussion. He's different than most of the atheists, right? He's
Well, at least
willing to conversate.
Yeah, and the thing that I like about him is he's the first atheist that didn't say you live in a sky, daddy. So I mean, yeah,
What I
that-
would have, what I
that's
would have
just
liked to
strong,
have
man.
done is to get him to explore the idea that since he acknowledged finally that information is immaterial, how can it have a material cause? What is the cause of the existence of information? We never did get to that point. That's a critical
Right.
point. I
Yeah,
wanted to
that
get
is.
to that one, but we didn't get around to it.
But it was a good step, though. If they could all make that step, that would be good.
Well,
Yeah.
here's the other thing that has to be addressed too, though. Like in the creation of information, like prior to our human development of computers, there was no mechanism by which novel information could be created without the direct action of, and I'm talking about like direct action in relation to like it's being created in real time by a human agent or another intelligent agent, right? with the development of computers, and then this, where we're at now with artificial intelligence and such, mechanisms which we have created do have the ability to create new information, right? But it's now the indirect result of the action of a direct action by an intelligent agent. And
Right, so I guess the atheists would now have to argue that there's some sort of impersonal, immaterial force out there. Some
Most
abstract
atheists
force
actually
which
deny
can
that
create
information.
in the real world.
Well, and that's where the one of their fundamental abiogenesis escape mechanisms comes into play, which is, there must be some unknown law of nature that we have not yet discovered, which is the cause of the information that is required for life to exist.
Most atheists actually deny that information is immaterial because they're being good little philosophical materialists, as atheism actually requires them to be.
Mm-hmm.
But David was a little different. But what he doesn't realize is to acknowledge that information is immaterial is to acknowledge that an immaterial mind is the logical cause of it. This is what he would not allow himself to admit, probably, because like every atheist I've ever met, they argue against the existence of the supernatural. They can't acknowledge the supernatural because if the supernatural exists, then they can't say there's no logical reason not to believe in God, or that no evidence that God exists if they acknowledge humans have a supernatural component, which we would call spirit. So they have to argue that our intelligence is nothing more than caused by nothing more than a physical brain. So all things have a material cause, and information, if they acknowledge that information is immaterial, they need an immaterial cause for it. Then they have to acknowledge humans have a non-physical spirit, a soul. And if a human has a non-physical spirit, then they can't logically say, well, I can believe that humans have a non-physical spirit, but I'm not willing to believe in the non-physical spirit that created your spirit, right? See, they can't go there. Right?
And real quick.
Well, that's why the godless. Yeah, go ahead, Will.
Yeah, go ahead, and after I just want to address something. Go ahead, Standing.
No, something that just came to mind was, and I've experienced it many times in debates, the godless engineers of the world that then want to just say, biological information, nothing more than organic chemistry, right? Which we've gone down that rabbit trail all the time. But
it is not a code. It's a chemical. It's deoxyribonucleic acid. It's an acid. I don't understand why you think it's a code. DNA is no more of a code than Diet Coke and regular Coke.
Come on, Chris.
Stupidity, man.
This guy's a moron.
I like the way Dr. Sanford deals with it. He deals with it really nicely in Contested Bones. He said, as a rebuttal to people like Godless Engineer, he said that would be like saying an encyclopedia has no real information. It's just paper and ink. Or that a computer contains no real information. It is just electricity flowing through circuits. Information is information regardless of the medium. And I like because a lot of times the evolutionists, they'll try and avoid answering these questions, answering these arguments and problems to their fairy tale. They'll say, what's your definition of information? But Sanford defines it as functional specificity communicated through language or code. It's as easy as that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right, I guess the other route they could take is that to argue that information doesn't really exist and is just an illusion that we made up somehow.
Yeah,
because I've heard that before.
I mean, it's been understood by information theorists a long time that information is non-physical. Henry Quasitor, the famous MIT, Harvard information theorist, wrote in 1948, MIT Press, information is not comprised of matter. He said plainly, information is information. It's not made of matter. I mean, this is not something that information theorists argue about. It's something atheists
I mean, you gotta deny. I mean, they gotta deny so much stuff they don't even realize. And
They're science deniers. That's
hey, you're a science denier. You're all of you creationists. You're just complete stupid. You guys really believe the Earth is 6,000 years? How dare you? We have to show you it's wrong from dating method that give us wild dating.
Here's the problem with these evolutionists, and we've all had so many debates. Actually, and Godzilla Freak, man, I've been listening. You've been making some great points. So you're a good addition to the team, man. I'm looking forward to watching you school some evolutionists. But here's the thing.
Thanks.
So actually, Godzilla Freak pointed out well, where we'll often come into these debates with sometimes the same arguments because we know there's no real empirical answer to these arguments or response. So you can oftentimes come in with these same fatal blows, and they'll just dodge. They'll do what they do best, right?
SFT is just on a script. That's all it is. It's a script.
The SFT script. I'm selling it on our website. The SFT script. So
well, what's funny about all this? And it's kind of interesting. Part of the reason I pulled up that. By the way, so I'm gonna record that video tomorrow morning with the argument. But when I was writing that earlier today, and it was kind of fun to actually showcase it to somebody like Danny, who he's pretty solid from a philosophical perspective. It's like when you really go through the arguments of things like from information theory perspective, structural biology, these different factors. It's you don't actually have a response other than you jump down to, well, I don't believe in the Christian God. Like they don't have any other escape mechanism because if you're a remotely rational person, they can't publicly be like, oh, well, that's not the rational outcome. Sorry, Godzilla, I interrupted you.
He was still trying to go back to that it's not a real code, and then he realized he couldn't go there.
Well, when it comes to genetic entropy, they'll say things like when I had my debate with Godless Engineer, like it's got to be going on almost 2 years, year and a half now. That was his response. He wouldn't address any of the questions as usual. Wouldn't provide any type of mechanism that can filter out these deleterious mutations. His argument was, well, how do we measure information loss, which actually comes from R and Raw. They don't want to deal with it. They want to say, there's no way to measure it or there's no way to quantify it. But I always find it funny when you look at these examples of reductive evolution, gene deletions, or even just shifts, like inbreeding, for example, shifts from heterozygosity to homozygosity. Reductions, by definition, is a loss of some kind.
Mm-hmm.
But once again, they're just it's semantics, rabbit trails. They don't want to address the data. It's getting sad for them. Really.
Yeah, and
one of the things that really just drives me up the freaking wall, to be honest, is their reliance on quote unquote synonymous codons, and it's like, okay, so if let's do actually, I need to create an argument for this one too. Evolutionists, if it is now known beyond all doubt, it has been quantified, it has been observed, it has been tested, it has been repeated, all of the things that you rely upon in order for something to be determined and defined as science, and therefore to be a remotely plausible empirical evidence, right? If it is now proven beyond all doubt that a replacement of a swap of a quote-unquote synonymous codon in many instances result in a failed protein synthesis, and that's what you swapped, was a supposedly synonymous codon, and you have a failed output. That means there's additional information that you're not accounting for that's being housed in that codon that is not equal to the one that you thought was synonymous. Therefore, it is not synonymous. Dumbass. Like in no other context would anybody be like, oh, well, there's no additional meaning to this. It'd be like saying that in, French or Spanish.
Translational error is the only other possible explanation.
Right. And a lack of knowledge of what is actually being translated. I mean, I agree with there's an error, but like if you don't even know what the additional information that's being translated, right? And like you only know part of it. But then you're claiming that that's somehow evidence for evolution being more plausible. Like, no. That's literally the antithesis of that, idiot. Like, if you have to have this one in here, then one of your fundamental arguments, oh, we can just have synonymous switches and everything's fine. Like, actually, that's false. Like, we know this beyond all doubt. We also know there's genetic diseases that are directly caused by supposedly synonymous codon.
Right.
Like,
Well,
we know this beyond doubt. This is quantified now.
And that takes away the notion that these are all completely neutral. And then people like Herman Mays or Dr. Dan, they'll look to statistical hierarchies when they're assuming away what you're talking about. And then, and shameless plug, I'm going to turn on the webcam for a second. John, what you're talking about, my book, the first couple, Adam and Eve, I got a whole chapter on everything you were just talking about. And
what is that? The face reveal?
Yeah. If you want a face reveal, just go look at the back of my book.
Yeah. Wait, show it to us.
What? My book?
Face reveal.
I'm not seeing your screen, man.
Oh, really? There.
There you go. We have the face reveal.
There's the shameless plug of my book and everything John's talking about. Third position codons, synonymous codons. John, that's one of our favorite paper is the redundant codons, functional purposes of with translational pausing. And I mean, it's getting bad for them. And they have no way to explain, no mechanisms, unless they want to give evolutionary mechanisms like selection a mind, right? To design that which we see in the genome that requires forward thinking. So it's just getting bad. It's getting bad for them. I don't know.
Yeah, you guys are science and I are. Listen, you creationists.
It is getting bad. I was tonight. I was over in David Neff's after show, and I'm trying to get where me and Leo's trying to get a debate going. I think on his channel on whether DNA is a code, ironically, and
it's not.
But he said he said that he wants to debate you logical on physics, and he wants to debate you SFT on I think what was it, the Kalam cosmological argument or something, and then Jungle.
Who is this?
Something I forgot.
Who are we talking about?
Leo, it's Leo.
Well, Leo.
Right topic.
I already talked to him.
Well,
Yeah,
I mean, I think
apparently he don't think he got destroyed by you, Jungle.
well, I think yesterday we kind of saw how Leo kind of got destroyed by John. I mean, John hadn't sleep for 22 hours, and he says he dropped the mic on him. So yeah.
But that guy Danny though, you know what I mean? That was cool that he actually come to, you know what I mean? Did concede some points, but he kind of had to, you know what I mean? You guys just completely backed him to he had no way out.
No, there is not a chance. Okay, listen. I believe in eternal security, and there's not a chance in hell that I'm going to debate Leo Filius on physics.
No, he didn't. He says I didn't say debate. I said a discussion. Well,
that's fine. That's fine, Leo. I'm not talking. I'm just. That's cool. I like Leo. I mean, we get along. That's fine. We'll do the discussion.
It's impossible. It's impossible.
I think I could just play those clips John played. And I think it's game over anyways. But I mean, John, you know how you liked? I think you were talking about. You watched Trinity Radio, right?
Yeah.
You were talking about Gaulit's engineer. Did you see the one I posted it in the private chat? Did you see is the one he did on T-Jump talking about pinhole escapes?
Oh yeah.
I was watching on the old
you talking about Braxton's video on T-Jump?
Yes.
Yeah, I watched that.
I recommend everybody watch that.
Aren't Trinity Radio a Calvinist though?
I don't think so.
No.
Yeah, I think the guys with the ball head guys, he's a Calvinist.
Oh, hey,
no.
Be careful. Be careful. We have a Calvinist in here. Nephilim free. He's a Calvinist.
Oh, come on.
Hey, what's up?
Hey guys, hang
on.
Hang on, guys. I think Godzilla. Were you saying something?
By the way,
Godzilla, were you saying something?
Oh no, it's just no, don't worry about it.
Okay.
Well,
you speak softer than the rest of us. I heard you start talking. When you've got Nephilim free standing for truth, obviously me, because I'll just ramble over anybody. And then Will, we've been being a bad example for Will. He's turning into like an overtalker like the rest of us. So it's gonna be nice to
talk away.
And then Jungle, actually, here's the irony about Jungles. Like Jungle's usually super quiet, but then when he gets flipped, flips into talk mode, he's like, brah, like bulldozer coming through, and
Yeah,
I want to point something out. Someone in the chat named Anton says, "Why is the debate now listed as private?" If he's talking about the debate I just had tonight, it'll be there, but it might not be in the upload section. He'll have to go down to. Let me see.
No, I mean, he just doesn't want to show it. Standing doesn't want to show the debate because he got completely crushed down by David. That's why.
It's just
I need to hide that.
Yeah, delete it right away.
Good point.
David teaching real science.
oh hey, say standing. So this will crack you up. So you know the Devil's Advocate video I posted the other day.
Oh, when you destroy him?
You demolish me? Yeah. Oh yeah.
So okay, so this just proves beyond all doubt that YouTubers don't actually watch videos before commenting, because I have gotten from both supposedly Christians, right, and atheists, but the Christian ones crack me up more than anything. I have been eviscerated multiple times by people for being a jerk to Christians in relation to that video and how I shouldn't attack people. And I'm like, well, so, and then on the atheist side, like they're clearly missing the whole point, right? And I'm like, this is hilarious. These people literally don't. And by the way, in the description, I literally have, and this is before I published it. There's a sentence in there where I say something to the effect of like, "This is extreme sarcasm." Right.
Well, you said it in the video, and you could tell it was extreme sarcasm just the second you joined.
Yeah,
with your name running from the truth.
Well, heck, when I even stated, I think tonight I'm going to play Devil's Advocate, and that's like what I said in like the first 30 seconds, right? And all these people have been attacking me in comments that I'm somehow doing the antithesis of what I'm actually doing. I'm like, wow, people are dumb.
Idiot creation.
I got to point something out from the chat because RJ Downward was brought up, and it brought me.
I'm not falling for that trap.
It brought back memories with Brother Neff. And his interaction with a few interactions with RJ. The 2-on-1 was great between Neff and RJ. But the one where Neff
those guys are literally pulling their hair out of their heads.
Well, the one that I will always remember, I've got it uploaded on my channel as a clip, where you got RJ to rage quit. He threw off his headset and he got out of there so fast.
Oh man! He says, "Can I?" He was screaming at the top of his lungs. Can I say something? Can I say something? And I'm just casually talking. He's trying to interrupt me. He's so desperate to make a rebuttal of fake what he thinks is a rebuttal to something I'm saying, and I'm just carrying on. And therefore, you know, because we can know, and all the time I'm talking, it's I want to talk. He's screaming, bloody mother.
Wait, what's that word that you were saying too? Hydro. What is that word again that you were saying to him when he was getting mad? Hydrogasity or something like that?
No, I was.
No, it was the safety.
I don't remember what I was talking about. At the
no,
moment.
it was the safety saying that.
Oh, the one that I trigger him?
Heterozygosity.
Yeah.
I mean, you pissed him off.
Created heterozygosity T-shirts, and on our website you can find them. So I got to make sure to send RJ one in the mail.
Well, you need to get a you need to get a T-shirt. You need to get a T-shirt. What's the word you always say? Here's the thing. No, it's not. You always say a phrase before talking to evolutionists.
Here's the thing. Take your time.
No, you should. You need to get a T-shirt with David Neff picture. I'm gonna dodge.
I'll point out. It may have looked at it like I was extra aggressive tonight, and sometimes in debates, but as Neff points out, when you get into a debate, and Ben Shapiro actually has a lot of good. I've read books on debating and stuff, and one really good one's called Tactics. But Ben Shapiro's got a lot of good tips. Neff pointed it out today. It's like chess. Okay, when you go into a debate, it's war. It's a battle, isn't that right, Neff?
Yeah, it's you don't go into say. I mean, the point of going into a debate against people on critically important subjects like who's got the true worldview is not to go out of the debate saying, "Well, I had a really good time, and it was fun sharing my thoughts with you. I enjoyed hearing your thoughts." This is not what it is. You're going in there to decimate your opponent.
Right.
You want to destroy them.
Well, in the
I mean, because you want the audience to see this guy's worldview get destroyed.
Exactly. You're destroying his worldview. And I want to point something out is when you ask a clear question, especially if it's detrimental to their worldview, their position, especially position on the debate, and they start dodging or tap dancing, you want to call them out on it, right? You don't want them to dodge it. You want to press them on it. And RJ Downard is key for that too. Because when RJ Downard,
Okay, so everybody needs to look up on the screen. Okay, so if we ever wanted to see one of the most entertaining dumpster fires of all time, Sal and Dr. Rob Stadler versus RJ Downard and Professor Dave on abiogenesis. Okay, so I'm just going to go into prediction, okay? RJ Downard all he'll say is origins are bust, let me see the literature the whole time.
Right.
Professor Dave will run around and spew talking points. Dr. Stadler will annihilate him on the chemistry, and Sal will just here's the problem, Sal, on terms of you and RJ Downard in the same debate. You're too nice to go up against RJ Downard because RJ comes off. He likes to project this whole I'm just a nerdy librarian.
And he will legit interrupt every 3 seconds, even if you're not even dodging, you're answering his question. If he doesn't like the answer, as in the answer is destroying his point, he will interrupt again. And my debates with RJ, I say, RJ, calm down. I actually learned this from Neff. RJ, I know you're excited. RJ, calm down. I know you're, and you got to keep him on point.
Yeah,
right? Don't let him. Like my advice to Sal would be, Here's my rule. I'll allow 3 questions from the evolutionists, but I am not in there for a 2-hour interview with the evolutionists. No, I'm going to make sure that I'm getting to my questions too. Hey, I'm going to respond to your question by giving you an answer, but then I'm giving you a question.
Here's the answer.
That's right. Never let him off the hook. Never let him run from your questions.
So Sal, here's what I think you need to do. Either myself or Standing or Neff, we need to be your partner, and then I will willingly accept the role of the proverbial asshole in that debate. I will happily accept that role.
I know you would.
And then just be like, no, hang on, RJ, hang on. Okay, Sal, please. I know you've got a badass diagram of what the heck RJ Downard just said is totally wrong. Can you please pull it up and explain to him in understandable language, because he never actually reads the papers that he claims he has. And I have the largest library of aggregated papers and literature on the topic. Yeah,
I've never read any of them.
RJ, have you ever read them? No. Okay, so again, Sal, will you please pull out one of those amazing diagrams I know you got, and just give us 5-minute lecture, and I'll be like, okay, Sal, that's clock time on that particular topic. Okay, so going back to the idiots on the other side, how do you want to explain what RJ and why it's not valid? And then RJ will go, oh, there's literature. I need a quote. I need a citation. And Sal's gonna be like, there's 7 citations on this slide I just showed you.
And don't forget, if the evolutionists, authors of the paper, if they're not young Earth creationists, then apparently we're misrepresenting the paper.
Oh yeah, if they become young Earth creationists, then they're now brainwashed, so they're also unreliable.
So either way, but here, I want to say something. Well, I've got my screen shared and audio. I'm going to mute myself in a second, John, because I got that it's about a 2-minute clip. The one with Neff and RJ with RJ.
Oh man, that's funny.
Oh, Snake was right this here. The man.
Okay, I'm going to mute myself so there's no echo coming from me though. We got to enjoy this to the fullest. I titled it "Evolutionist Rage Quit of the Year." So here we go.
Bad connection, SFT.
And for those who enjoy this channel and would love to support us financially, please feel free to hit that donate link. We'd greatly appreciate it. God bless.
Sal player.
Of course it does.
Neff, hold on, please. Guys, hold on a second.
The article.
Hold on. Question, please. Can I ask a question?
I'm not saying it does. I'm
please. Can I ask
Why
a
did you
question?
cite it? Then why did you cite it? It doesn't.
Because this is the very mechanism that supposedly created the 80% difference.
Can I ask a question?
According to who? According to who?
Can
Not
I
this
ask a
paper.
question?
Wait, you're saying it's
Ask
not?
the question.
Okay, so let me ask you a couple of questions.
Okay.
Are you
Can
telling
I
me
ask a question
is it
of
not
Neff,
true
please?
that 80% of the proteins in the human
Can I ask a goddamn question?
James,
I do not normally get angry, but
James,
I am
just a minute.
frustrated that you're the same
James, hold on.
overhead.
The difference.
Information. This
The
is
problem
not
is
a
this.
conversation. This is a monologue.
James, the problem is this: the evolutionists, when you point out this kind of evidence, they go ballistic and atomic on you because they can't answer for it. And
Did
so
I go
that's what
ballistic
you're
on
doing.
that?
Moving the goalpost endlessly. So I'm going to ask a couple of questions to get to the meat of it. And the first question is this: is it not true that 80% of the proteins in the human genome are different?
I cannot
Jackson?
deal with. I am very angry. Let me
that
tell
not
you.
true?
Let me talk
Is
for
that not-
1 minute. Will you let me talk for 1 minute?
Is that not true?
Guys,
And-
Will you please let me talk for 1 minute?
Okay,
You
let's
keep
allow
on saying
James
you're
to
going to
ask
let
his
me
question.
talk, and that you never do.
And
Yes.
is it not the same mechanism that created the difference in our
Oh my God!
the single
Please,
nucleotide
somebody-
polymorph changes?
Shush! The other people who have their
please just let
microphones muted,
RJ
will you
talk?
please tell us, do you think that Nephilim keeps asking the same question over and over again and does not allow us to talk about it?
The problem is this. Oh man.
Please tell us, do you think that Nephilim keeps asking the same question over and over again and does not allow us to talk about it?
The problem is this.
Oh man, that's funny stuff.
You're dumb.
I was trying to have a conversation.
That gets
I was
me
trying to
every-
go over a couple of brief points with Jackson Weed. And RJ Downard was so livid that he couldn't stop me from making my point by doing that with Jackson Weed. That he literally lost his cool, totally lost it. He wanted me to stop talking to Jackson Weed so he could start talking about his. See, really, what he was attempting to do is destroy the point I was going to make by asking Jackson Wheat had failed to acknowledge that evolutionary process, mutation, is what allegedly built the 80% difference in the proteins of the human genome and the chimpanzee genome. And he was denying that. But evolution requires that to be true, right? And evolutionist scientists published that that's true. So I was asking him a couple of questions. Wait, are you trying to tell me that mutation is not the base mechanism that created the 80% difference between the human and chimpanzee protein codes? And all the while, I'm trying to get to that point because RJ Downer knew that if I could get I was about to get James Jackson Wheat to admit that his denial that mutation had built that 80% difference was wrong. Downer didn't want me to prove Jackson Wheat wrong about his
No, he didn't.
mistake.
He couldn't.
So he's trying to shut me up by taking over the conversation. When I wouldn't let him do it, I just kept on dialoguing with Jackson Wheat. Downer just lost it. He went ballistic and blew his cap. It was hilarious.
It was hilarious. And,
Hey,
and that,
I don't know if
and
you
that
guys
was your
noticed.
first interaction. Real quick, John, I'm going to interrupt you.
How dare you? How dare you?
So That was the first interaction, though. But when Raw Matt and myself moderated Neff versus Jackson and RJ on MDD 2v1, for anybody who hasn't seen that debate, please watch it, because I mean, Neff demolished the both of them at the same time, and that was a real prime example on how to go into a debate to essentially expose your opponent's position. Because every time they tried to interrupt, which was frequent, Neff would call him out. Hey, listen. I'm asking you a question, or don't talk over me, and that was a very good debate, Neff.
Man, thank you. They try to skirt the questions. You have to hold them to it, because they'll run from like crazy from your questions because they don't ever want to be wrong about anything. You see.
I think that Aaron Raw and RJ Downer would be ultimate evolution combo. You just never get a word in.
I'd have to be controlling the mute button on that one.
Oh man. Okay, here's the thing though. You could never do that debate on StreamYard because they can unmute themselves. You'd have to do it on you would have to do that one on Zoom. So you could have mandatory mute options.
Well, that's what Ken Hovind was saying. He said, I'll debate Aaron again as long as I can control the mute button.
Well, here's the thing, like Aaron Raw can literally get destroyed so easy. The problem is he's a moron to just speak over people.
Have you not seen this video of Aaron Raw that somebody made? Aaron Raw literally blowing his cool. Oh, it's the funniest thing, man.
Simple question. Aaron Raw just goes on rant.
Meltdown. Oh, you got to see this. If you haven't seen this, you got to see this. Aaron Raw's meltdown. Where is this? Oh shoot.
Yeah, have you guys seen the video of Aaron Raw says that if the God of the Bible was true, he would tell him to go to hell?
Yeah, Aaron Raw is one of those that God himself could come down and look Aaron Raw in his eyes and say, I exist. And Aaron would.
Well, he already knows that God. I mean, every atheist knows that God exists. They just don't want to accept him as the creator.
Okay, so quick sidebar, guys. I want to just quickly.
I'll be right back.
Quickly point out.
Well, John, actually, I got a story real quick.
Hang on. You interrupted me when I was about to do this 5 minutes ago. So hang on.
I'm trying to bug you.
And now I'm trying to figure out where the hell this stupid message went, so I want to show on the screen to crack up. Oh man, where is that? Well, whatever. I can't find the message now. Leophilius made the comment about how Nephilim Free talks over everybody.
Like, coming from Leo.
Leo, did you forget about what was going on last night? No. I mean, it was like, no, stop, no, and then other much stronger language than that. Obviously, went down on multiple instances. You were literally shouting people down, and you're accusing Neff of talking over to people. That's good. Okay, go ahead.
He was talking even when he was muted. He was still talking.
Oh man, I forgot about that. That was hilarious. It really would be entertaining to be a fly on the wall in Leo Phyllis's room during a live stream. Oh man, after he's been muted, there's no telling what is being.
What about John when you demolished Godless Engineer, but apparently you were the meanie, coming from someone like Godless Engineer, who I won't even repeat some of the things he says.
Well, the irony of that, okay, the stuff that he said in the debate or anything was fine. Okay, whatever. The stuff that he said on Twitter to me, where he literally tried to infer, or he made the accusation that I was somehow threatening him by offering to set up a conversation with a PhD at the University of Alabama, Huntsville, which is where he lives and where he went to college. I offered, hey, I'm in Nashville. It's 100 miles south. I will drive down. We'll go have a meeting at UAH and discuss this whole code thing with information theorist. He literally, and his wife, by the way, both inferred that to be me threatening them. I'm like, how in the hell is going to speak with a hyper nerd PhD information theorist at UAH? How is that threatening? I don't understand how you reach that conclusion. I mean, that's just nuts. But and you're right, because everything he does is literally trash talking. What I find very interesting about the atheists, at least the YouTube atheists, is they talk a massive game, spew crazy amounts of vitriol, and then when, using myself as an example, come out and just be a complete jerk back to them, then somehow you're just so mean.
Well, even with the arguments though too, because so far I've experienced 3 times in the last 4 days with Leophilus, Godless Galaxy, who goes by Mr. Parker, and now David Neff. And I'll say David Neff, good debate, nothing bad. But those 3 guys over the last month, I've seen them multiple times in streams with Team Dodgeball saying, oh, there's no evidence for genetic entropy, scoffing at it, scoffing at Dr. Sanford. And all 3 of those guys within the last 4 days, and John, you watched the Mr. Parker one, when you confront them in live debate, suddenly they have no answer. Suddenly they have no rebuttal to that which, when they were amongst their own kind, they were scoffing at and saying there's no evidence. I find it hilarious.
Mr. Parker the other night for an hour and a half, whatever, how long that was ridiculous. The whole 2 does not equal 2.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I mean, bro, at this point, if you're going to run around and like adamantly argue over whether or not 2 equals 2, I don't know do you need help?
Law of identity. How does it work?
Yeah, but John, selection acts on genotype, not phenotype.
You guys want to see something hilarious?
Did you find that
It's not
video?
very long. Yeah, it only lasts a couple of minutes.
We're good.
This is hilarious, man. You ought to see this. Tell me if you can hear it or if something's wrong with the audio.
No audio.
Try pause it, unshare, and then make sure to click the audio at the bottom left, Neff.
I did that. Yeah.
Oh, did you?
So let me see here. Maybe
Could be if you got a headset on too.
Okay. Let me try loading it in a different browser. Maybe that'll make the difference. Let's try that real quick. Okay, I got it loaded up in another browser. So let me try screen sharing this again. Sure. Okay.
We're good.
Reality has no meaning. We are all in error. If in fact you are only talking about data, then you are just making the distinction about whether your statement is truth or false.
Aaron, you're reasoning with me now. How do you know that your reasoning is valid?
Because it's concordant with reality, regardless whether reality is real.
Are you using your reasoning in order to see if it's concordant with reality?
Yes.
Okay, is that not a vicious circle to use your reasoning to justify your reasoning?
No.
Okay, thanks for your time.
No, Aaron, please let me finish, okay?
Yes.
Aaron, let concordance finish, please.
You say your reasoning is valid because your reasoning is valid. How do you know your reasoning is valid, concordance? I'm sure. Okay.
Aaron, please, one at a time. Let's keep it civil. Aaron, please.
Concordance,
George, bear in mind, George Harrison had a personal relationship with Krishna.
So let's cut Aaron out of this conversation for a moment. Please, Aaron, please let us finish this.
Aaron, let concordance go, please.
You're like a nuclear option here.
Would it be impossible for God to reveal something such that we can be certain of them? Would that be impossible?
I think I can take it from.
Well, no, I want to ask. Let me ask concordance. Would it be impossible for God to do that?
If God is if God is contingent on being logically coherent.
No, I'm saying he's all-knowing, he's all-powerful, and logic.
Aaron, please. Aaron, please.
This is Aaron. But can't you just mute him?
Aaron, you're getting a bit disruptive there. Aaron, please.
The string of data is a fact, so you can't tell me what God is until you can show me what God is.
Aaron, please.
Step away from the mic, Aaron.
Right, I'm going to pause this. We're going to, no, Aaron, stop. I'm going to pause it. The first caller has been waiting patiently. Welcome to the show, Alex.
I deny your premise. Logic is not based on observation. You cannot observe that A cannot be both A and not A at the same time and in the same way. You can observe that. And if you can observe that, I'd like to see where you saw that.
Right, but the only reason you see that is
Aaron, please. You're not helping the
reptiles from planet Sirius are communicating through him and giving him and revelation as well. All of them claiming the same certainty that you do, when all of them are simply refusing to consider that they could be wrong to any degree.
That's simply the fallacy of hasty generalization. That's just like going to a kindergarten math class and saying, look at all these students have the wrong answer, therefore there's no right answer. It's a fallacy. Just because some people claim false revelation, you can't see that there's no real one. And you have admitted that you use your reasoning to justify your reasoning. So actually why you're still in this conversation, I don't know.
So that he cannot be wrong, and God told him, as Newton wrote, that he's right and you're wrong, and God said it's wrong, and he puts the same accusation you just made to him, he puts to you. How do we determine which of you is right?
Well, if somebody who wanted to posit that wants to come on here and debate me, I'd be happy to debate them. But I'm debating a bunch of atheists. I'm debating a bunch of atheists who
well, the point's been put to you, so you need to answer.
Okay, I will refute.
Aaron, we've got the point. We've got the point, Aaron.
I will refute all of these other hypotheticals. I'll refute Thunderfoot's hypothetical. I'll refute Aaron's hypothetical.
Aaron.
Okay.
Well, I just refuted your hypothetical. Stop. Enough.
Here's my refutation.
All of you. Stop. No, Aaron, we've got your point. Aaron,
it's pathetic that you don't know that in the position you're in.
I'm saying that
I don't know what kind of medication Aaron forgot to take, but
Aaron, we've got the point, and I do insist that we're going to move on.
the only way you can say you can be certain of it is if you either have all knowledge yourself or are revealed knowledge. And if you now hang on, Aaron.
Okay,
if you want to, hey Aaron,
Aaron, let's finish his point, Aaron. Let him finish his point, Aaron.
Quit setting me up. Let me say the damn sentence. It's not that hard. He's telling me that I have to have all knowledge. I have to know everything. Everything before I can say whether 2 + 2 equals 5. He says 2 + 2 cannot equal 5.
is you did not hang on, dude, Aaron.
Aaron,
Neff,
please, Aaron.
Do you ever have? It's called a
Aaron, we've got
conversation.
your point.
Your point is
trying to get people are
it's
setting
hey
me up
Aaron,
so I can't
it's Eric's turn here. Yeah, we got your point several times. You said it very loud. We appreciate that. Now,
quit twisting that around into a lie. I know you've taken up your daddy's business, but you're not lying on my show.
Aaron, how do you know that your mind isn't being controlled?
Well, I have no reason to believe that it is.
Okay, that's an argument.
Primary answer.
Yeah, we're going over. Sorry, to be fair, we're going over old ground. We've got the new court.
No reason. Hey!
So, Si,
be wrong about that.
I've got to ask you, Si.
Okay, thank you. And that's exactly what you accused Eric of, so I thank you. Thank you. Go ahead, Thunderfoot.
What I said is the opposite of what I said, even after I clarified it a half a dozen times. Get the point.
Aaron, please let me know, okay?
Aaron, that concordance finish, please. Aaron, please, one at a time. Let's keep it civil. Aaron, please. No, Aaron, stop. Aaron, please. You're not helping the. Aaron, we've got the point. We've got the point, Aaron. Aaron. Well, I just refuted your hypothetical. Stop. Enough. Both of you. All of you. Stop. No, Aaron, we've got your point. Aaron, we've got your point.
I don't know what kind of medication Aaron forgot to take, but
Aaron, we've got the point, and I do insist that we're going to move on.
now hang on, Aaron.
Okay,
if you want to, Hey, Aaron.
Aaron, let him finish his point, Aaron. Let him finish his point, Aaron.
Hang on, dude. Aaron.
Aaron, please, Aaron.
Do you ever have? It's called a
Aaron, we've got
conversation.
your point.
Your point is
trying to get people are
hey, Aaron, it's Eric's turn here. Yep, we got your point several times. You said it very loud.
Okay, I guess there's no point going on. This is the long version. The shorter version is much better. It's much more succinct, but it's funny to see how he blows his stack and starts screaming bloody murder, and he gets the anger in his face, like he can't stand it that he's being refuted by Christian apologists. It just blows his gourd, man.
Man, I fall asleep and the audio switches to my speaker. It wake the F out of me.
Well, that's why. Well, for one, his voice, he sounded like he had a sore throat or something.
Dude, I thought there was a demon in my room. I was like,
well, Neff or Aaron won't do structured debate for that reason that Neff just said. Is anytime his argument or his worldview is getting demolished or decimated, that is typically the point where he will interrupt. And I agreed to have a formal debate with him on modern day debate. This must be going on about 3 months ago now. I even agreed to have Gutsick Gibbon be one of the moderators, make it formal, rebuttals, openings. Cause I would love to do like a 12-minute opening, and I guarantee he wouldn't be able to address any of it.
He wouldn't take that debate. He won't debate anybody in a structured debate about creation. Somebody asked him, why will you not debate Nephilim free? People have been asking you to for 10 years, more than 10 years. And his response was that he's tired of, he's several times people have asked him that, and he said, he's not worth my time. But he can spend 3 days in a row making videos about me and calling up, Ken Ham, and I mean, not Ken Ham, but Miller and other scientists, get them chime in. But I'm not worth his time. But then he won't do it because his last excuse was, I'm tired. I'm done with creationists. I'm done with the
yeah. And here's the thing.
He said, somebody asked him, you know who he is. I'm not going to say somebody who's popular. I'm not going to say, because I said I wouldn't say who. They asked him, would you debate Nephilim free in a structured, moderated debate? And he said, I'm through debating creationists. He won't do it anymore.
Yeah, here's the thing.
Excuse.
Aaron Ra has his puppet now. He has become really popular in a way, so he doesn't want to get destroyed.
Well, they have a lot to lose, these big atheists. That's why you'll never see Vice Rhino, Pelagia,
dude, Polo,
all the big ones. The only one
and that video that you just saw of Aaron Ra's meltdown.
Yes,
everybody in there that was an atheist is a used to be on YouTube. I've debated them dozens of times in live streams. Concordance and some other guys. Those guys used to have loud mouths about atheism and evolutionism. They got put in their place by creationists, Christians, so many times that they just kind of fizzled away. Nobody listens to them anymore. They haven't been on. Nobody has seen a video from these guys. If they've been making them, it's 20 guys watching their videos. And they just faded away, because they got beat down by creationists so much that they pretty much just disappeared from YouTube.
Well, it's funny what you said, Neff, how they'll say, not worth my time. Neff's not worth my time. LPP, SFT. But in the last week, or maybe it's been the last 2 weeks, Aaron has had Kenneth Miller on once for you, Neff, and then just the other day for me and Ramat.
Okay. Oh, did he?
Yeah, he did a video on us too.
Yeah, can I
respond soon? But what was I going to say? So the point is, he's got enough time for that.
Yeah.
And that's why I won't do text debates. Especially now that I got a Facebook account, I got all these messages. Hey, you want to come do a text debate, comment war? It's like, listen, let's go do a live debate.
Yeah.
can't Google the whole time, where I can corner you and question you and
Yeah,
expose
same for
you.
Jason
People want to
yesterday.
hide behind keyboards and comments all day.
Right.
No time for that.
Right. They don't want the general public see them getting destroyed by somebody like yourself or me. They don't want to see that, and so that's why they're afraid to do the live structured debate. That's why R and Raw won't debate either one of us.
I
Guys,
think it's kind of funny that Aaron Raw, he wanted to be a politician in Texas. He wanted.
Yeah, he did. You're right.
He
guys,
ran for some.
I'm the future of creationists.
I'll be right back.
I'm just
Yeah,
kidding.
you want to go get into politics and destroy creationists or something.
Yeah, I'm assuming that Aaron Ra must live in Austin because that's the only city in Texas he's getting elected in.
Or John, what about you and Matt Dillahunty? Look at him. He ran from you. He knows. I mean, he's got a lot to lose. He knows he goes up against somebody like you, where Dillahunty doesn't even know the basics of genetics, biology, the science of the theory he holds.
Well,
So he's not going to take you on LPP. You'll just completely decimate him, and then no one's ever going to take him serious again.
Well, Matt Dillahunty's he used to be a Christian from what I've heard, and now he's a total haters of God. I mean, he's
was one of those
he's a
head-knowledge
reprobate basically.
Well, he chickened out of a debate with LPP, and I don't blame him.
Wait, LPP wanted to debate him on what? What subject?
It was going to be evidence for God. Reasonable evidence for the existence of God. I think it was.
My point of view, like the best evidence for God is that he can have facts. That would be the best evidence for God.
Yeah, I mean, without God, you got no explanation for the laws of logic, laws of nature.
Well, not even
Morality,
to mention that
DNA.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, how I would explain it to me, how I would explain it to atheists is, atheists are in an open system, right? As Christian, like, we know that God is going to destroy the earth, right? He promised he would destroy the heavens and create a new earth. But atheists, right, they're on an open system. Everything can happen for them. So there could be an alien coming tomorrow and simply exploding the earth. So they can never be sure of anything because everything could happen in the world. Like the World War II, it could just be alien deceiving us or a big thing behind all of that. So there's no such thing as facts in an atheist worldview.
Yeah, they think they're going to terraform other planets and everything. They're going to move to other planets and stuff like that.
Well, here's the thing. They
or
watch
transhumanism, download their brains into.
Oh, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. They want to. Here's the thing. These atheists.
Why would you want to live forever on this earth? Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No. That's a good point. You can continue. I was just going to point out the fact that they watch too many science fiction movies like Star Wars, Star Trek.
The 100.
Enjoying them and recognizing the fact that, listen, these are science fiction. They think this is what the future of our world is going to be. We're going to be traveling and exploring distant galaxies, and we're going to move to different planets. It's science fiction. That's why Richard Dawkins says, well, there could have been an intelligent agency, but it wasn't the God of the Bible. I mean, it could have been some ancient alien civilization where they themselves could be explained by evolution. I mean, he's watched way too much. What's that movie? Prometheus.
Star Trek.
Star Trek 2.
Yeah, and a lot of. I mean, it's.
Yeah,
they dream of it.
More like Lost in Space.
Yeah.
Or the series. Have you guys seen the new series that Netflix released? It's called. It's called. Origin of Life and Alien Civilization. It's literally them showing other planets with self floating in the planet with like freaking alien. I mean, this is like how crazy they go.
Okay, so real quick, Leo Filius is a stunning idiot. Okay, so he's been on side chat giving this whole tangent about physics, times, tenseless time, all this kind of stuff, right? So I asked him if he leaned more towards static theory versus dynamic theory in relation to time. Okay. He then says, so you mean tense versus tenseless time, static versus dynamic isn't used in physics. Okay. I had sent him a link, ladies and gentlemen, before he posted all this. So obviously he doesn't, like so many atheists, he doesn't actually go and read things that are sent to him. It's amazing. So the fact that he says dynamic is not used in physics, it's a stunning.
Also, all that matters is semantics. Who cares about, what's
I know, but
actually meant?
well, I agree, but here's the thing. In relation to time, which is what was being discussed, here we go on Stanford.edu. The dynamic and the static theory. Many of the above considerations, especially those about McTaggart's argument, the A theorem and the B theorem, presentism, eternalism, yada, yada, yada. Okay. You scroll down a little more. The static theory of time. Okay. And what static theorists believe. Okay. The dynamic theory of time. Holy crap. I mean, I don't know what to say, buddy, but I think you're just wrong, and perhaps you're not as informed as you think you are. All right, continue, everybody.
He really isn't. He made some stunning errors in my debate with him. Just completely blathered off some nonsense.
Well, I think you destroy him, Neff.
I think a big problem philosophically with the static theory is that if the future is infinite, then what you would get is an actual infinite. Like, because on the static theory, it's all there. It's just like a big block. So there would be an actual infinite going to the future, which is problematic.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Oh, by the way, and Leo, if you want to counter what I'm about to say, I'll just share my screen again and embarrass you some more. But what is static and dynamic in physics? More formally, statics is the branch of mechanics that deals with the forces in the absence and changes of motion. In contrast, dynamics, study of forces in motion, more formally the branch of mechanics that deals with the effects that forces have on the motion of objects. So, I mean, there's multiple aspects, obviously, from a semantic application of those words. But, I mean, for you to blanket say that they don't exist is they're not used in physics. That's just ironic.
Something I pointed out in my debate with Leo when he tried this tenselessness of time scenario on me is I simply asked the question, can an effect precede the cause? If not, then the tenselessness of time is a fake human idea constructed to get around the Big Bang, the universe coming into existence from absolutely nothing. It's just a fake idea. Because it's completely irrational to believe that a cause, an effect, can precede its cause. You know, if a baseball pitcher is throwing a ball, can the batter hit the ball before the pitcher throws it? This is what he would have you believe. These numbskulls with this tenselessness of time theory, which is completely irrational, doesn't fit in the human head. But atheists are people who hold up an idea and say, see this weird idea that's self-contradictory? It's true. See what I mean? You're wrong. I'm wrong because you put forth an idea that's irrational and self-contradictory. I mean, please, what?
Time's the result of the formation of matter. You can't have time without matter.
With the B theory, what they say is that time as we experience it isn't really real. Like it always exists as like a block, basically. That's what they say. That like our experience of time is just an illusion that's not actually real.
Well, I mean, there was a pretty aggressive paper published by, I forget who it was. He's at MIT. They published it last year, and on the illusion of time. And I mean, there's so many different people that are going down that path of time being an illusion. And, you know, if there is only or it's tenseless and all the different aspects of that and the ramifications of that in the context of if there is only a now. And
yeah,
what really cracks me up about that from the atheist perspective is like, if that is all true, if time is an illusion and or there's only a now, and everything is
there is only a
by the now, then your reliance on the supposed evidence for deep time just gets utterly annihilated.
There is only a now, but the past and the future don't coexist with the present. That's the flaw that they make, which is what they believe, which is absurd. As I pointed out, that an effect can't precede the cause. So,
Well, I know, but where I'm going with all that is in the context of the illusion of like the passage of time.
Yeah,
right?
they're saying like this is all in their head.
yeah, well, they say that the past, the present, and the future coexist all the time, constantly.
Well,
the
I know that,
future
but
and the past are with us right this
If you
second.
exist at the speed of light, you're always in a now.
Well, I agree with you. But what I'm saying with all that is like, if that is true, then what we are perceiving as evidence for the passage of time is the only rational conclusion is that we're actually seeing an illusion of what would have to happen. And, and this is where things like and this is why things like what we're starting to see with like retrocausality and like the evidence of it, right? Like, it looks like this changed, right?
Yeah,
well,
one
there's
could
only the
actually
now,
argue.
and what we're only seeing what would is relevant and relative to the now. Then of course we're going to see the modification because
one
that's what would
could
have
even-
had to have happened in order for this now to exist.
Yeah.
And you apply that to the distant starlight problem and different things of that nature, then suddenly you have a major conundrum to the fundamentals of the supposed evidence for deep time is the point I'm making. And that's one of the things that kind of gets glossed and or shoved under the rug in the context of these types of theories. It's like, hey, hang on. If you keep going down the rabbit hole, then you run into the reality that, oh crap, if this whole time thing actually isn't in my favor.
There is no absolute measure of time or distance in the universe. It's all
But I've heard
fabrication.
like the argument from actual infinites, where if you can't metaphysically have an actual infinite, then if you hold to beer theory time, you'd have to have like an end of the universe. Otherwise, it will go on infinitely. But because it's all actually there, then there would literally be an actual infinite going into the future.
I pointed out to Theophilus that time, energy, space, and matter are interdependent with each other, and none can exist without the other. And he denied that, and because he wants to put forth this idea that the Big Bang had, that something can come from the universe exists eternally. That there's always been something, it's the steady state theory remodeled all over again. They're still trying to hang on to this idea because they simply can't accept that the universe came into existence ex nihilo, out of nothing.
Or
Because that's a
bouncing
creation
universe.
event.
Believe in bouncing universes.
Well, yeah, and I believe like there's a lot of, there's a lot of problem with the Big Bang or a theory, and like you said, Neff, they gotta know, like they gotta come to a conclusion of a uncaused cause, right? And in order for something to happen, there must be an uncaused cause. So the Greeks used to all to believe that it was God that was holding the earth, but where was this God being held by? They were saying turtle, blah blah blah, but you still go to a point where you have a cause that need to not be caused. This material cannot be eternal, it's decreased too much over time,
Yeah, there
and-
can't be an infinite number of prior material causes because
Yeah.
each change would represent an expenditure or
And a loss of energy.
and that can't have gone on infinitely in the past.
Yep.
Else, all usable energy would have been evened out infinitely long ago.
And there's the radio. I've heard that argument. I don't remember from who, but in our universe, there's like a radio. There's
background,
cosmic background. So the
Cosmic
universe cannot be
microwave
eternal.
background.
Yeah,
CMB.
yeah, it would be too much like hold. I mean,
Well,
if,
it would be splotchy and spotty and clumpy if
Yeah.
there had been a naturalistic Big Bang.
Mhm.
Because as matter began to form, different types of matter, and it began to organize and become clumpy, the universe began to become clumpy because structures formed, as galaxies and stars, that's clumpy matter. As matter began to clump, the energy radiating past it would be like a hand puppet on a wall with flashlight. Put a flashlight against your hand against the wall, and you can make your shapes, right? You see your shadow of your hand against the wall. Well, that's what would have happened had there been a cosmic Big Bang event, a naturalistic Big Bang. There would have been, as matter began to clump, the radiation shooting past it would create shadows, and that would cause temperature differentiations, profound ones, for the cosmic background as far as we can see in the universe. But instead, that temperature, as far as we can see with radio telescopes, is nearly perfectly the same in every direction. And that's the problem. So this means that there was no naturalistic Big Bang where all matter came from a singularity. God didn't create the universe that way.
Yeah,
there wasn't even a supernatural Big Bang. It was it was a big creation, not a Big Bang. Because had there been a Big Bang like that, the energy radiating would be like the flashlight, and the clumpiness of matter as it formed in the early universe would be like their hand, creating the shadow on the wall. That shadow on the wall would be a tremendous difference in temperature in the cosmic radiation background, you see. But it's not there. That means there was no secular Big Bang.
Yeah, and brother Neff, I'm gonna try to make sense what I'm about to say. It's probably gonna sound destructive, but if the universe is eternal, why is that day happening right now? If it always has been going for eternity, we shouldn't even be talking right now, right? Because does that make sense?
Well, there wouldn't be any usable energy if it had happened infinitely long ago.
Yeah, and that day couldn't even have happened if it's eternal. Why? What would happen now? Because we're in a time was created. Because doesn't eternity kind of imply that there is no time? It just what it is.
Right, exactly what you express is like the impossibility to
Yeah.
build an infinite through successive addition.
Yeah, it wouldn't make
How do you
sense,
get
right?
to any specific point in time after an infinite point in time?
Right,
Infinite.
the present would never come into being.
Yeah, that's what I was
another
trying to
problem.
say. Yeah, that was what I was trying to say. I
Yeah.
don't know if you guys ever read that book. I'm gonna be dropping the link in chat. It's a 15-page book. I mean, just an article basically. It's actually by an atheist, I believe, and he says the cause of a universe, or universe itself may be uh unnatural. Like it may be like a supernatural cause. Let me try to find that book. If you want to take a look at it,
What I think is funny is Krauss saying something comes from the universe came from nothing, but nothing is not actually nothing, is something. I mean, hearing this guy do his philosophical song and dance is just
can I
too
show
much.
you?
How is it that the students in his classrooms don't look at him like, with a raised eyebrow and say, "What
Yep.
the heck?"
I want to show you
This
a
guy
video
is
about
nutty.
Krauss. I want to show you guys that, and you guys give me your thought. Can I share my screen? Logical.
Yeah. But
There you
matter can't make matter. Matter
Yeah,
can't make itself.
I want to show you guys this video. I just
Yeah,
think
that's
this
what
is.
happens when you reduce philosophical concepts to physics. You start saying dumb stuff like it's a really interesting kind of nothing.
Yeah. Oh, it's a special something. Nothing is
Special
actually a
nothing.
special something. It's a special something that's nothing.
Yeah.
Well, he thinks a fluctuation made everything, but you can't have a fluctuation unless you have time and space.
And it's got to be something to fluctuate. Yeah.
Well, I mean, they gotta come to your. Basically, they go into your circular argument. They really gotta come by the universe came by nothing and out of nothing.
I really think what he was really trying to do was to pick fun at the Bible when it says the earth was formless and void. He's trying to use that void and say that everything came from that void or something like that, which is totally out of context. What the Bible was actually saying anyway to begin with.
Well, they're always trying to mock the Bible, the secular eggheads. They always are, and they just to do it. They have to invent crazy things like dark energy and dark matter and
Yeah.
crazy stuff.
They just make themselves look bad.
Just
That's all they do.
invent things. They'll say the universe is comprised mostly of dark matter. We just can't see it. We can't.
Neff. You don't have enough imagine. You need more imagination, Neff.
Right.
You need more.
Yeah, that's for the math. Okay.
If I came from the Amazon and I can understand that the universe didn't come from gravity, like Stephen Hawking says, because of gravity we can have the universe, but you can't have gravity unless you have matter. If I can understand that, what's wrong with these people that are
gravity is a
and the stupid and the stupid statement he says, because there's laws such as gravity, the universe will and can and will create itself out of nothing. But if you have actually gravity, you don't have nothing, you have something. But what caused the gravity to come into existence?
Right, you can't have gravity unless you have matter first. Then you have gravity.
Also, like physical laws are not prescriptive. They don't cause things to happen. No, they're descriptive of what actually happens.
Yep. Is John there? Are you there, John? Or standing? Are you there? Can someone share my screen?
No. Looks like John is logical LPP has stepped away from his.
Yeah, I gotta
for the time.
I gotta show you guys a video after. It's by Lauren Krauss. He says pedophilia is fine.
Oh, get out!
He got in trouble for
really.
Yeah, I have the straight video out of his eye. He says, "I don't see." He says pedophilia
Put the link
is fine.
in the text chat over
Yeah.
here
Yeah.
for us, would you? I want to see that before I go to bed.
Yeah. He
actually got in
that's
trouble
what he says. He says pedophilia is fine, but I would not recommend to do it because it'll lead to genetic problem.
Let me see that link, please.
Here you go,
Paste
brother.
it in the text chat. Because I'm about to go to bed myself, but I want to check that out before I go.
Oh, it's 1 minute video. You can take a look at it.
I agree.
nothing here.
Universal Artisan. Universal Artisan says in the text, William Lane Craig gave Krause a beat down. He sure did.
Well, here's the problem I have with William Lane Craig. He's a great man, a great apologetic. No one can get me wrong about that. I mean, I just think he's holding to the theistic evolution point of view, which is totally garbage.
He's not a young Earth creationist like he ought to be.
Well, no, Craig's not a theistic evolutionist. He's
he
old
is.
Earth creationist.
No, he's a
kind
theistic
of
evolution.
agnostic about it.
No, he's actually a theistic evolution. Go see his last video.
No, he's not an evolutionist. He's like agnostic about evolution. He's like
No, he actually do believe in it.
No way. No.
Put the link to this video in the text chat, please.
I put it in private chat. Neff.
Oh, in the private chat.
I don't think he knows what he believes about evolution. But anyway,
He's like,
Well, what about Mikhail Behe? Is he a theistic evolutionist?
no, I know he's not.
I mean, how can
What about
how can you
Mikhail?
not have a
What about
position on this?
Well,
What about
guys, I'm
Michael
gonna
Behe?
crash. It's late. I'm beat. I'm gonna
Yeah.
crash. Good to see you guys.
I love to speak to you, Neff.
You guys take care. Thanks, and have a good weekend. Maybe I'll have a live stream tomorrow. If you
I'll
guys
be
got
there,
nothing
brother.
else to do, you might want to drop in. Okay.
Good
Yeah, I
moderating.
think I'm falling asleep here too. It's been a long night, guys. I'm gonna go pass out, get some sleep as well. It's been a fun after show as usual. Neff,
Yeah.
thanks for moderating today, and
Standing.
yeah, brother.
Yeah, real quick. Matson and still didn't send me the link.
I'll say that's my fault because I forgot to remind him. So I'll do that though. I appreciate. I got your message on Facebook too on my Standing for Truth page. So I'll give you a quick shout, Will. So good job, man. You're really knowledgeable on these topics. We're happy to have you here, brother.
Thank you. I appreciate everything, boys.
All right,
Yeah,
gentlemen.
pretty impressive for a young man your age. I want to see where you're gonna go in 10 years.
I'm the future of creationists. I'm gonna be the Christian apologetic.
Yeah.
Well, that's good. Me and Neff, and we can all retire one day, and you're gonna take over. Well,
Yeah, I think I'm probably gonna I don't know yet, geology or physics. I don't know which one yet, but I'm like really interested into those two sides.
Evolutionary biology.
But I think we have a lot of biologists.
Yeah, biology is where the information is, it seems.
Just don't tell them that you're a young Earth creationist while you're getting your PhD, because you'll have a hard time.
Well, that's nice because now actually like my school are starting like to do like basically we're doing everything at home, so that's really nice.
Yeah, I'm just pointing out that if you get a degree in science, it's unfortunate but true, and you let on that you're a young Earth creationist, you probably won't be gainfully employed in that field. You've spent tens of thousands of dollars on a high education that you can't use to make a dime. That's unfortunate but true.
Yeah, that's how it is. All right. God bless you. Neff.
Okay, guys, take care. Have a good night.
Yeah, peace.
Yeah, take care. Did a good job.
Oh, everything's hopping off. I guess it's only me and Jungle.
Everybody hopping off? Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. What about you, Jungle?
I guess I'm about had it too, but
I guess we're all gonna be
unless
heading.
you have something to talk about.
Well, I think I'm probably gonna be heading over there too, because it's 4 in the morning for me over there.
Yeah, no problem. No problem.
All right. God bless you, brother. Stay safe, and glad to speak
Yeah.
to you pretty soon.
Yeah, God bless you.
All right, peace. Yeah, Doki, I'm gonna be heading in Dr. Dan class.
Yeah.
Yeah, real quick before I leave, I'm gonna do it, boys. Here you go.
Yeah.
All right, God bless everyone. All right, I'm out.
I guess I am too. John, you're not there right now, I guess, right? So I'll just back out and see if there's any chat here. What do we got in chat? Nothing. Got George Bond. Apparently. What you see, you don't believe comes. All right. Anyway, I guess I'll take off. See you, everybody. Good night. God bless. Stay in God. Stay close to God. Draw near to God, and He will draw near to you. So, what's up, George? What's up, Lena?